Okay, so now it's time for Street Talk. Can I just quick, if anyone's listened to this on YouTube, you haven't heard the first 10 minutes of the podcast, Gemma's had her appendix out this week, so she's feeling a bit rough still, but she's been very brave. Doing a podcast this week, aren't you, Gemma?
I'm being one of the bravest people who's ever lived.
Bravest people who has ever lived, exactly. So, it's going to maybe be a bit different, a bit shorter this week. We will have to see.
Incomparably selfish,
Okay,
I would
stop
say.
banging on about it, for heaven's sake. Right, 5 storylines this week. One of them's very short. We've got the Stephen story. I couldn't think of a good storyline title for this at all, so I've gone back to...
Oh, why? Did your appendix come out?
No, I've been very busy this week looking after you. It's been a tough...
haven't.
Right, we're not starting this again. I've been the perfect
no, you haven't.
host and not host.
This is my house.
I've been the perfect looker after her. Thank you very much.
What?
We're going to do
You haven't even been able to look after yourself adequately.
Stop. It's caught reed-handed. We're going to because it looks like this is the beginning of the end for Stephen this week after that bizarre morning scene with Tim at the end of the episode. But this is also part of the Bailey storyline as well. And after I had the amazing storyline title of Edna Gigi last week, somebody pointed out there is actually a well-known comedian called Ed Gamble.
Yeah,
and maybe that would be better as a storyline title. I've never heard of them, but thank you. I will take that.
It's a man.
So caught red-handed / Ed Gamble first. Up next we've got Shell Shock, Gemma. Shock, Shelley's dead. Oh no. Or actually no, I just remembered. I thought of another one. You know the you probably haven't heard of this. There's a video game called Dead Shells.
No.
Yes. We have got the return of Showing Privates Ryan as well this week. A little bit more of the stiff competition storyline. And poor old Courtney, caught out. She's been slung out of the family home. She's living with the Allahans. Now she's having to get a divorce papers served as well. So it's a bit rough for her. But she only had a couple of scenes this week. So I'm sure that won't take too long. Now, do you want me to kind of take the lion's share? Do you want me to do...
You said you were going to. So
okay,
just
fine.
carry on.
I know, I'm just making out like I'm
Why
seeking
are you pretending
your...
we're having a conversation about it? You told me what you're doing.
No. Oh, fine.
You're just bullying me.
I'm not. I just make it out like I'm asking you and I'm not just taking over the whole thing.
I'm a vulnerable person now and I'm also brave.
Stop it. Right, we're going to do the Stephen storyline first, Gemma. So you like this story. Let's find out what happened. How did you find the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday broadcast schedule this week, by the way?
Well, I wasn't there for half of it, so I don't really care.
You came home from hospital on Tuesday night, didn't you? So I watched Monday's episode without you, and then you caught up. Do you like having it bunched all together in a week? Any opinions at all?
Are there any more other questions, or can I pass and come back to that one?
I quite liked having it 3 days in a row, but I'm not much liking all the days that we got without any Coronation Street. 4 days without it, that's too much for me.
It's quite relaxing for me.
In what sense?
I can just relax.
Not have to think about watching Coronation Street for a few days.
I'm not very well.
I know you're not very well. You have mentioned it so far. No, I've
barely brought it up.
It made because it was obviously something quite big and exciting happening this week with Leo's body being uncovered. So having it day after day reminded me a little bit of Britain's Got Talent week or a Super Soap week where we might get daily episodes. But yeah, it's been Wednesday since we last saw it, and the original plan was to record the podcast on Thursday night, and then you went and got your bloody appendix out, so now we've had to wait. And I can barely remember what happened, but luckily I've written it all down, so we'll have to see whether this brings back any memories for both of us.
I'll tell you what, I'm not doing it again.
Not doing what again? Having your appendix out?
Yeah.
Okay,
you
fine.
Forget that.
So, beginning of Monday's episode, new development for Vinny and... Not Vinny. Who's Vinny? What am I supposed to... Ronnie, probably. Vinny. Ronnie's feeling pretty positive. They're doing their building work. They're out in the field. He's feeling pretty positive about how it's going to go. But they go down to the site, and it's not so good because Neil, the site manager's there, saying that the digger's been delayed down south. So can't do no digging today, but we can get it down there by the end of today. So, be ready to go.
That was probably what they were using to get my appendix out.
Yeah, we got... You got to excavate Gemma's abdominal cavity.
Yeah.
So they go along to the dig site later, and did you know going into this week this would be?
No.
Did you recognise it from? Because
no.
There's been a lot of confusion online since Leo's death about what happened to his body, because some people are saying, I remember him going in the bin, remember him going in the van, what did Stephen do to him next? And it is true that on the episode where Stephen buried him, which was I think the ep after he was killed, it was a really quick scene, wasn't it? And I don't think it was really obvious what was going on. They showed Stephen burning his passport and stuff, and I think maybe the camera panned over to the ground, but it wasn't it wasn't completely obvious that that's where Leo was. We knew that that's where it was because we'd spoken to the director about it.
We literally have said this a few times on the podcast. It wasn't actually shown in the episode, but we know, because we know what the script was supposed to say, that was supposed to indicate that he had buried the body there. So if you listen to the podcast, you would know that he had been buried in this location.
Yeah, there was a lot.
And I know that it wasn't obvious from watching the show, but that's why you got to listen to the podcast, see?
But it was a bit weird, wasn't it? Because they had in some way you're not supposed to know what's going to happen. In some ways you are. Because, even with what little we'd seen of the filming location, we haven't visited where this was, but it wasn't too far away from the set. We'd only seen bits of it. So I guess, unfortunately, I'd seen stuff in the news beforehand that Leo was going to be dug up this week. So as soon as they went to the site, I was like, aha, I recognise that place. But I don't know whether many other viewers would have done. But that made it all the weirder when they had that strange scene at the end where the camera zoomed into the ground. That scene.
At the end of what?
At the end of that scene where you got Ronnie and Ed at the builder site and Neil, the site manager, it ended with the camera panning down into the ground and that weird, ominous music. Remember?
Yes.
And I don't get what they were going for there, because I would imagine that if you knew that Leo was going to be dug up this week, you'd read the spoilers or whatever, you'd be like, oh, I don't need teasing with any kind of weird experimental music-y editing techniques. Okay. If I didn't know that was happening this week and it was just the camera panning into the ground, you'd be like, well, what? It's just ground. What's the drama here? So I don't understand at all. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah,
there.
I'm trying to get
a word in. Get a word in.
I think that, right, not everybody that works on the show watches the show, but they do know what's going on and they obviously follow the storylines. So if you had only been given information about what the show thinks it's told the viewers, then you would think, oh, if I do like an ominous zoom into the ground with a sound effect, everyone will remember this is what happened. But unfortunately, they didn't actually put that in the show in a really comprehensive way. So I think that somebody was working off of information based on something that didn't really get communicated correctly at the time, right? Do you not think so?
Possibly.
Because when I was watching it, and he kind of did that thing with his foot, and then it went, whoo. I was like, oh, it's kind of like symbolic of how everything's going wrong. And
yeah, you didn't naturally pick up, this is where Leo is, did you? Because you didn't recognise the place.
I didn't know the spoilers. I didn't know they were going to dig him up or anything. I didn't know, even though I knew, because we were told, the script said that he was buried in a wasteland, I didn't recognise that as the same place, because the filming was done at night for the burial scene, even though it wasn't a burial scene, it was a fire scene. And then this scene was filmed during the day, so it didn't look the same. The camera angles weren't the same.
No, it was a total miss. I think some people probably saw that and went, oh, I wonder if that's where Leo was buried, but it wasn't clear enough, and it was just confusing.
I think we also, what's the word? We analyse these things and think quite more deeply about it than the average viewer.
Quite possible.
But it shouldn't have been so weird. I think that was a bit of a mistake.
Anyway, so Ed and Ronnie and Neil go around the pub later. Waterford has had a big TV installed there, Gemma. TV at the Rovers. Do you like that? Over the fire
that was weird.
Yeah, they were playing a Weatherfield County game. I thought it was just weird that Weather County would actually have a game shown on TV. I always imagined them as being a bit,
Yeah, no, but how do you watch your local clubs?
You go round to the terraces.
For all we know, this is what you do.
I got no idea. It was probably some obscure
channel. There's got to be
channel.
some reason why people always want Sky Sports.
Anyway, they're playing this big Weather County game there, and Ed tells Neil that James Bailey, future landlord of the Rose Return, clearly, has given him a hot tip about the game, and he's a bit tempted when Neil's like, well, let's go down the bookies, place a bet on then. And Ed's like, oh my God, I can't, I'm a gambler.
So what's the difference between insider trading and this?
It's insider betting, it is, isn't it? Well, the difference is that Ed is able to resist insider betting, but his brother Ronnie is not quite so.
So is this just insider trading
Moral.
for poor people?
I guess it is. So anyway, the game started, but there's a message on the screen because TV doesn't work. It says, "Oh, your subscription's been lapsed." So, oh no, they can't watch it. Waterford's can't even get a TV installed properly. What you like? So then Neil comes in. He says, "Look, we've already missed the good start of it. The opposition's already let a goal in, and Ed, you're a mug for not putting a bet on with me because I'm laughing all the way to the bank, me." And in the end, they end up crowded around a phone and watching it. It wasn't particularly the most interesting of things, but maybe it's just because I'm not that into football. And Michael's wondering at that point where Ed is. He's disappeared off somewhere. Glenda says he slipped out. And Michael goes back to number 3 and finds Ed there. And he's a little bit worried about this because he knows that Neil's been putting a bet on. And he's like, "Oh, Dad, you've not been doing that as well." He kind of dances around asking him whether he's been at the bookies or not. And Ed says, "No, came straight home. I couldn't be doing with Neil there talking about betting or anything. I needed to take my mind off it. So I came over here, didn't want the temptation." And Michael says, "Dad, you can talk to me if ever I need to." And Ed's like, "Thanks very much."
If you need to.
Yeah. Anyway, Ed tells Neil to do one at the end of the episode because Neil's like saying, "Give me some more top tips." And Ed's like, "No, gambling is bad." So Tuesday, this is when it all kicks off.
No, he really has to go at him, doesn't he? Because the bloke's like heckling. Well, he's kind of hectoring at him, isn't he?
Yeah.
Outside of the tram station, and Ed's like feeling quite badgered, and then he sort of snaps and is quite rude. Some would say justifiably so, but the issue is that this is somebody he's got to work with, and so there are ramifications the next episode, which is why I'm making a point of it.
I couldn't remember. Anyway, so the diggers arrived in time for Tuesday's episode. It's also Ed's birthday, and he's also feeling pretty positive about the day. He's like, "Oh, nothing can go wrong today. This is going to be the best project ever. Way!" Phrase of doom, everybody. So the kids, Michael, Dee Dee, I don't remember who else was there. They can see that Ed's worried about something though, and he's like, "Yeah, I had an argument with Neil yesterday. I hope it's going to be all right." And Ronnie says, "Look, you just need to sort this. We need to work together. We're going to do some good old digging today. We don't want you to be looking horns about things like this." So they go off to work. They're outside the yard. Ed apologises to Neil, says, "Look, the reason that I acted that way is because I'm a gambling addict." And Neil's a bit awkward, but he understands. So the dig starts later. Ed's called over by one of the guys digging, and you get to see him kind of walk over to where they are, and his face just drops. And we're left for quite a while to find out exactly what it is, which again makes it all the more confusing. You know, yes, Monday's episode, you kind of led to expect there to be something, and I don't know, but we're then cut to Jenny and Stephen getting back from their holiday in Paris. Ronnie's there to have a little chat with, and Stephen overhears Ronnie having this very worried sounding telephone call from Ed, and Ed saying, "Look, you need to get over to the building site now." So he goes over to the site where Detective Craigie is on the case. He's been as useless as ever. Ronnie's like, "I want to go and see. What's Ed telling me about this?" And Craig's like, "No, you can't see that." Ronnie's like, "You can't stop me, pig." Squeezes past him, and then we get to see what the whole kerfuffle is about. It's a giant floppy green hand coming out of the mud. Gemma.
Yeah.
What on earth was that? It was Leo. I don't know. Not much has been said about the green hand. How did you find that particular practical effect?
Oh, it was hilarious and brilliant.
I've never seen the hand of a corpse.
Yeah.
Almost a year after it's been buried underneath a field.
Yeah.
But I'm not thinking it looks much like that.
I tell you what, though, the number of people who are experts in human decomposition that I found out existed on Twitter this week was astonishing, wasn't it? But you know, I mean, we're always talking like we're experts on everything. So
I'm definitely not an expert on it.
I totally appreciate that we're all making it up as we go along. But this is my question. Okay, right? Yeah, it kind of looked quite comical. But what did we want? A skeletal hand?
Yes.
Like rotting flesh on television? What time was it? I don't think they would be allowed it.
Well, then you need to just imply it. I watched
what
it.
Did you want? Okay, right. So you'd rather we didn't see it at all because that would have been what would have happened. You would have just had Ed peering over the side going, "Oh, it's a hand."
Yes, I think that would have been better.
No, it
They've
would have
had
been ham.
dead bodies found before in Coronation Street. This has reminded me an awful lot of when Tony Horrocks' body was found. I think it was like late 90s, early 2000s, I can't remember, when they were digging up Victoria Street and Tony Horrocks' body was... They didn't show it. They didn't need to show it. They also had it with Patricia Hillman. Because there were definitely parallels to be drawn there, and there's that serial killer storyline. They didn't show Patricia Hillman's kind of clawed skeletal body underneath the writings, did they? No, they just said, "Oh look, there's Patricia Hill." You don't show it. It just
no, it's good.
It didn't look great.
You're wrong.
I didn't think it was necessary.
It was Halloweeny.
It's not even. You're still a month away, Joe.
No, I don't care. Halloween's. I've decided it's from mid-September to mid-November.
Whatever. Anyway, probably a bit of a misfire there from Coronation Street. I'm gonna
this
say.
whole thing was flawless.
So anyway, Ed is, rather than getting too worried about this body and like, oh no, some poor soul has met their untimely end here. Ed and Ronnie's reaction just seems to be general annoyance at the fact that they can't carry on with their project.
Okay, so it's no different from people that get annoyed when the train gets delayed because somebody jumped in front of it. It's not a very nice attitude to have, but at the same time, you're still going to be late.
I didn't really feel like, the gravity of the situation was really hitting home for all the characters.
It did feel a bit like they were like, oh, typical. Somebody's crawled inside the dirt and died. Right, well, I want to build a building on top of it. It
kind of, the way they talked about it was like, oh, here we go. Here goes
it's
body.
like, oh, it's always the same bloody thing, innit? First of all, the diggers down south. Then there's a dead body underneath.
It goes to show how much
next?
Coronation Street has changed in the last 20 years. That like people have just been desensitised to random bodies turning up somewhere. It's like, oh, I think we found another one of Pat Phelan's victims, or I don't. If an actual getting away from the drama of a soap, if a real body had been found in your back garden or whatever, I don't know. I feel like it might affect you a little bit more psychologically, possibly.
I'd be a bit freaked out.
Yeah, but I don't think they were.
Then Ed and Vinny are like hardened.
He's not Vinny, he's Ronnie.
Ronnie are hardened wellarders.
They are. They're builders, aren't they?
By the way, did I say I'm dizzy and on drugs?
Yeah, Gemma is on drugs at the moment. What have you got?
Really good ones. That you're not allowed to. They're illegal. No, they're not illegal. Ow! They're not. You can't buy them from the shop. You have to get them. Ow! From a man.
Gemma is in a fair bit of pain at the moment, but these drugs help.
In an alleyway, I found. Yeah, he said he was a doctor.
It's got opioids in, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Ow!
You only got a couple of days worth left, Gemma. You're just going to be on paracetamol
it's next week. So funny.
You don't want to turn into some kind of Cassie, do you? You know what that's.
No, I don't. I think I thought about it and I decided not to.
No, it's usually not a good idea. Anyway, so they're going down the pub. See, Beth, I think this is where Beth, she's just trying to get all the goss on this body. Like, oh, tell us all about it. Like, we don't know anything, Beth. Keep your beak out.
Excuse me, that's what I'd be like. I'd be like, oh, that's really cool. Who's gone missing?
So, Jenny and Stephen,
that'd be your first question. Like, oh, do you know anyone who's gone missing?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Weren't they looking... Who was it they were looking in the canal for? Was that...
When?
It wasn't Leo. You remember when they were...
Kel was dredged out of a canal,
No, but they were looking for someone else.
I don't remember.
Do you remember? Because they were like scouring the reports to see if anyone was found. And then it was a body found and it turned out to be Kel.
Oh, wasn't it that dodgy person who was working with Todd or Paul or something on the phones? I don't remember what his name was.
Yeah, but anyway, you know what I mean? They've had this before.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
All right.
So, Jenny and Stephen, let's cut to them. Have a lovely old time later. They're in the flat. She's just like, oh, I want to stay on holiday forever. And he says, that sounds like retirement. And he kind of admits, I have thought about calling it quits recently. And they kind of muse over for a little bit. And she's just having a lovely time. I thought that Jenny and Stephen came across as a really sweet couple this week. Did you enjoy seeing them together?
Yeah, I did, yeah. But it's very short-lived, isn't it?
I think it is going to be short-lived. they came across as being very relaxed in each other's company. I thought they had quite good chemistry.
Yeah, they definitely
Jenny
do.
is just completely besotted, isn't she? She's lounging all over his lap in the sofa and everything. And she's like, oh, this is the happiest I've been since Leo. I can't remember whether it was Tuesday or Wednesdays that she
This
says
is the
that.
happiest I've been since Leo mysteriously disappeared almost a year before the day they find a corpse that looks exactly like him, but green.
But anyway, nothing could possibly go wrong with this relationship, Stephen. So Baileys are getting into a booth later in the pub, and Ronnie says, look, we need to get started soon, otherwise we could end up bankrupt. Oh no. So they have to tell Neil this later today. They said, look, sorry, we can't carry on paying the guys, we can't pay the men because they're not doing any work and we haven't got any money, so sorry. I think Ed's a little bit more is a little less harsh, isn't he? A little less cutthroat. It's Ronnie who's been the one that's saying, if they're not working, we're not paying them, sorry. Neil's like, fine then.
Now hang on.
Ed says, Ronnie, you don't treat people like this, but Ronnie's being very practical about it and saying, we ain't got the cash, sorry, Ed.
There's a distinction here that I think that they did make, and I don't know if you made a note of it, but sometimes the workers on a building site, because they're not just builders, there's plasterers and electricians and etc. They're actually contractors, and so you don't have to pay them, and they know this, and they will go and do another job. But I think at some point the point gets raised that because they were trying to be nice, they've put them under. They're all employees,
right?
So they're being paid to do literally nothing.
Yeah.
So Ed and the company are going to lose loads of money because there's no work on, right? So this is the thing about, this is what happens when you have builders in your house. You're not employing them as your builder. They're contracted to do work, which is why they bugger off every now and then. That's the point though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if they were contractors, they'd just go, well, fine, okay, we'll go do a job, but you can't guarantee I'll be available in X, Y amount of time, but at least you wouldn't be having to pay them out of your pocket.
Yeah.
I think they should just subcontract them out to Underworld.
Yeah, you'd reckon.
Do some packing.
I saw they had Dirk on the machines this week, so it must be.
They're hard up.
Yeah. Anyway,
I know what they should do.
What?
Subcontract them out to Ryan. There's an army of builders in Carla's bedroom, all getting their
kits off together. It'd be like the steel mill scene from The Simpsons.
Oh yeah, hot stuff coming through.
Anyway, there's just like, look, we just need to. They need to find out who this body is, then we can move on and forget all about it. And surely nobody will mind that there's been a dead body found underneath their new flat. It's not going to cause a problem.
That's why you call it something
Sooner
like
they'll identify this body, the better.
White Man Dam.
Yeah. So Jenny, meanwhile, at the end of the episode, she's still relaxing on the sofa with Stephen, and she says, "Oh, this is when she says I've not been happy since I was with Leo." And Stephen's also feeling
I was with Leo.
Yeah, since I was with Leo. It
sounded like you said since Summer was Leo.
No, I didn't say that.
Summer and Leo were two different characters.
She's feeling pretty blissful. She says, "Oh, you know what? From this point on, things are gonna get better for the both of us. Nothing can go wrong." Phrase of doom. Phrase of doom. Not Friday. Wednesday's episode. So Jenny heads out of Stephen's flat. This is where it all kicks off on Friday. It goes down. So
it's not Friday. It's Wednesday.
Wednesday, sorry. She's got a spring in her step, leaving Stephen's flat. She needs to go back to the Rovers. She says that he can start moving his stuff in because Tim's trying to evict him, isn't he? It's like going on your holiday and then you're out. Yeah. Stop repeating.
It sounded like you said
saying.
Tim is a victim.
Well, all his life. No need to carry on the separate room charade either. Me and you are a couple, Stephen. So Dee Dee over at number 3 is breaking the news to Ed and Ronnie that the investors have pulled out, so that's a bit rubbish. And I've forgotten what I did. In my notes here it says Stephen poos his pants when Michael and Izzy tell him, "Oh yeah, this is the scene where Stephen does his brilliant Attenborough impression." Can you do it yourself? We need to train your AI voice thing to do.
What's the sentence?
I can't remember. He's like, "And here we are."
Yeah, you did a good job of it.
But Michael and Izzy
explain what you're talking about, because you're not explaining it.
I'm explaining everything perfectly. Everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Michael and Izzy are talking about this body over at the factory. Stephen comes over, hears about it, and is like, "Body been found? I've left bodies places. Eek, I hope it's not mine." So he goes out the back and kind of cacks himself out in his favourite bin place.
He cacks himself out? Is that some kind of new technique?
Yes. He's just having a bit of a panic attack, outside in the Leo murder spot. You see him looking up to the railings. Don't get a flashback yet. He's looking pretty peaky. Sarah comes out and she notices that he's not doing too well, and she's like, "Look, just go home, Stephen. If you're not feeling well, that's fine." So Michael gets home, and he hears the news about the contractors pulling out. Was that what it was? Yeah, probably. The investors are pulled out, and Ronnie says, "Look, we can't pull out of buying the site. Not only would we lose our deposit, but we might get sued as well. So we're kind of stuck. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation here." And Nez says, "Well, anyway, we've come too far to pull out now." Meanwhile, in the pub, Jenny's telling Daisy and Glenda about Stephen moving back in today. And speak of the devil, in he comes, looking like death. He's like, "Oh, I'm fine. He says, "Look."
Who does?
Stephen. He comes in. He's looking fairly zombified himself, because he's realised that he's about to possibly get a little visit from the police. And but Glenda says, "Oh, here on the grapevine, it's a woman whose body's been pulled up." I don't know where this came from. It is a bit of temporary respite for Stephen when he realises, phew, there must be another crazed serial killer around here, and it's not just me then. But later on, he goes over to the Baileys in the booth and says, "Oh, as soon as this woman gets identified, the better." And Ed's like, "No, mate, it's a man." And so Stephen is like, "Bloody hell.
That's not a woman, Leo. It's a man, baby.
It's a man. Stephen says, right, so we Stephen's panic mode. He goes to the back of the Rovers. We see that he's looking around his bags. His passport is still there. So it looks like he's just getting things possibly ready to do a flit at any point. And he's there. He's just checking his stuff. And Jenny's twittering on in blissful ignorance about the terrible situation she's got herself into. Then DS Tinker and his mute accomplice come into the pub, breaking the news to Jenny that they've ID'd the body. And it is Leo. It's Leo Tompkins, everybody's favourite boring... What job did he do?
Surveyor.
Pipe inspector or something. And Jenny... Jenny, Sally Ann Matthews, yet again, brilliant.
That's what Jenny was doing.
Inspecting whose pipe?
Leo's.
Jenny was brilliant. She's just the whole wobbly lip. She's like, oh my God. Just imagine... It's all year she's thought that this guy had abandoned her. She's been told various things from Teddy, from Stephen. She'd given up all hope, and now to find that he's been here all along, just not far away, 6 feet under. And Stephen's there kind of glowering behind her, and Jenny's like, I can't believe it. You must have made a mistake. He was in Canada. What's going on? Stephen has his little panic there, which is the old... far too often used Corrie trope of the arguing, or the voices of the other characters are all go a bit muffled, and then the character snaps out of it. I hate that. And Jenny says, "Look, Teddy told you, Stephen, that he'd been in Canada with Leo. What's going on there?" And Stephen says, "Oh, well, he's trying to backpedal through this." And he says, "Oh, there's no way to know if he was telling the truth." And Jenny says, "Look, are you suggesting that Teddy murdered his own son here?" And Stephen says, "I just don't know." He's had to, quite a few times over the course of this story, had to come up with semi-plausible explanations for bizarre things that have been happening, but he's really, really struggling with this one. And he doesn't really come up with anything. But Craig goes, and just before leaving, Jenny says to him, "Craig, how long does it look like the body had been there? Was it recently or, a year?" And Craig says, "Oh, it was a long time." So Jenny starts to panic even more because she realises that maybe Leo did love her after all and he hadn't abandoned her, which is what they thought a year ago.
Hooray.
God, the drama.
No.
So while all this is going on, Ed is having a bit of a flutter, isn't he? He's at home with a betting slip watching the horses. So he's trying to get this money because obviously the project is hemorrhaging it at the moment, and he's gone back to the only way he knows of getting money, not selling his videos on O-vidz, because, I don't know. I was going to say nobody wants to see that, but I suppose there's,
There's a market for everything.
There's a market for everything.
I mean,
exactly.
You're listening to this podcast, aren't you, everybody?
Yes, that very, very true, very true. So back in the pub, we've got Stephen going out to the bar. But he follows on to the police. Then bloody Tim Gemma, sticking his neb in, didn't he?
I thought Tim was my favourite character.
No, that was Robo AI Gemma's. Tim's like, "Oh well, last time we saw Leo was when he punched Stephen down to the ground." Was it Tim that said that?
Yeah,
I think it
shut
was.
up, Tim.
Craig's like, "Oh
Nobody
really?
asked you, Tim.
Is that right? Leo and Stephen were involved in a fight not long before Leo possibly died." interesting. Mr. Reed, do you want to come down to the station to help us out with our inquiries?
Not really.
And Stephen's like, oh, I can. I need to stay here with Jenny. And Craig's like, no, sir. You must come down to the police station with us. And Tim's like, ha, ha, ha. So, like, I can't remember. I lose track of what Tim actually thinks. Like, does he actually believe at this point that Stephen is capable of murder?
He was very blasé about it if he does.
Because I know he thought that he wasn't right for his mum. And did he?
They both thought that she was trying to kill her.
Yeah, but I think there's a quite a wide gulf between that and what he discovered about the life insurance and everything, and actually being a murderer and having a body hidden under the ground for 12 months.
I think he's just thrilled to be able to put a spanner in the works for anything that Stephen wants to do.
Makes me wonder, like, does he not actually think that he's a murderer? If you thought he was a murderer, you wouldn't want to be riling up like this. You probably wouldn't want to be living near him, especially if you're his mortal enemy. You'd be watching your back at any moment, wouldn't you? But it felt a little bit much like, haha, I finally found some evidence that matches what I've been thinking about Stephen all along. I don't know.
Graveyards are full of people who were so excited to be in the right that they ended up putting themselves in mortal danger.
Anyway, so Stephen's off to the police station and he's like, no, it was fine. So this was in the episode where, I can't remember what, they were fighting over Jenny, weren't they? And it was when
you showed it to me.
Yeah, we watched it again afterwards, and I think Stephen had... Leo had found out that Stephen had snogged Jenny or something, and Leo lays him out on the Rover's floor. And it's Stephen's like, no, it's fine. Leo said sorry afterwards. Didn't see him again after that. It was okay.
I mean, to be honest, if the evidence there is that Leo punched Stephen, not the other way around.
Yes, exactly.
So,
but
I know that it could escalate and stuff, but Stephen's really good at making stuff up.
Yes.
So I'm not worried for him. I think everything will be fine.
He says, well, we just all assumed that Stephen went back to Canada. But, I did hear that he had a...
No.
Oh, Leo. So Leo went back to Canada. Did hear that he had a fallout with his dad, though.
Maybe his dad
killed him. I just putting it out there,
I remember
maybe.
hearing Teddy saying, I'm going to kill that Leo.
Yeah, something along that.
And he said, I'm going to bury him in a wasteland.
Could that maybe have something to do with it?
And I'm going to paint him green. In his final indignation.
So he's desperately trying to peddle his way out of this. And over at the pub, Ed comes in and he's like, oh, guess what? I've just been able to borrow some money from a mate. So clearly he's come up trumps on the GGs.
What's your mate's name? Ed Gamble. He's a real man.
He says, look,
He's a real man.
He's not an horse or anything. He says, look, I got some money that's going to tide us over until we find another investor. They have a little toast together, and Ed goes to the bar and is like, Ed, mate, you need to quit while you're ahead.
He says to himself.
He says to himself.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I understand.
Stephen's back on the street later, telling Sarah and David it was all fine, because they were both there in the pub when he was getting carried away, wasn't he? Well,
carried away?
Kicking and screaming when he was getting led away by Craig, and David wasn't being particularly helpful.
David was trying to land him in it.
Yeah. And he's saying to him, look, I just told the truth, it was all fine. Thanks, Sarah, at least you stood up for me.
You know how we're always talking about the different families of Coronation Street and who's the best and
yes.
stuff? Say what you want about the Barlows, but at least they stick together and cover for each other. The Platts don't. The Platts are always backstabbing each other, aren't they? And stealing and lying and cheating. You don't really notice it, but what's his face? David was perfectly happy to sell Uncle Stephen down the river.
He just does it for a laugh, doesn't he?
I think so.
He likes just making things difficult for people and making these wry comments.
This will forward the plot.
So we get a few final scenes of the episode with Stephen and Jenny. He goes back to the pub and they say, look, the police just need to speak to Teddy. He must know something about this. Then they have a night scene with Jenny on the sofa with Stephen in the back of the Rovers, and she's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry you got dragged into this." And she says she's had a tough old day, as our Jen, and she falls asleep on Stephen, and he soon drops off after. And then we get flashback time again. We get to see Stephen's dreams, which is a little compilation of all his best kills Teddy with a hole punch, Leo with the balcony, Rufus with a pool, and then
it was like somebody was pulling together his reel for the National Television Awards.
And he wakes up and it's sunrise. I love this. This, like, you could tell as we were watching this, it was coming towards the end of the episode, and Coronation Street so very, very, very rarely skips ahead on to the next day. So the fact that they were doing this, I was like, oh, is something going to happen here? And it's the birds are tweeting behind, and he gently gets up and he heads over to Teddy's Canal, the place where he'd put the roof box in with Teddy there, the place that we'd visited earlier this year. And it's just, he's not the only one there, is he? Tim just so happens to have been there after coming back to an airport run, and he kind of shiftily watching over as Stephen kind of prods the water with a stick.
He's probably forgotten what a toilet is, and he just does a wee in the canal.
Probably. But then Tim's phone starts ringing, because the other story that's been going on this week, which seemed completely superfluous until this, is that he and Steve have been playing around with each other's phones and setting silly ringtones on each other's mobiles, and his is the Birdie song, so that starts tweeting away. Stephen looks up, Tim's hiding behind this buddleia, and he doesn't get spotted, I think. Stephen sort of hurries off there, and Tim's left going, what was going on there then? So that's where we were left on Wednesday's episode, and it all looks like it's going to be quite an exciting time coming up for fans of the Stephen storyline. How did you find that ending on Wednesday, Gemma?
I don't like the idea that, I told you from the start, this is like Anna and Pat Phelan all over again. Character I don't particularly like, unravelling my favourite character of all time.
Do you think that, is it kind of looking pretty clear that Tim's going to be the one that leads Stephen to his eventual downfall?
Yeah. And the thing is, in both the examples, without wishing to be too rude to Anna, neither of them particularly Brain and Britain, are they? Anna and Tim.
No.
If you put them together and you said, these are the two best detectives we've had on Coronation Street in the past 5 years, because they were the ones to uncover the murderous schemes of Pat and Stephen. I mean, it seems quite stupid, but then I guess the professional is Craig.
Well, exactly. It's the blind leading the blind, really, online,
it's
helping the blind out with their
inquiries. They've obviously
inquiries.
selected these two characters because they're fan favourites, and they've also had dealings, and I understand why, and I get the story reasons why, and I totally acknowledge that it's just a personal niggle that I have with these two characters. I just really don't like them, and yeah, but it's fine.
I didn't particularly mind that. My biggest problem with this, and I'm sure they could have been a better way of doing it, is just the huge coincidence of Tim happening to be there at the canal. I mean, seriously,
yeah, I don't get it.
There's one thing, you know, if someone's out on the street and they happen to be walking by just in time to overhear somebody saying something or see someone doing something, that annoys me. But literally, who knows where this canal is in relation to Coronation Street, and it just so happened that Tim was there at the same time as Stephen. Sorry, that is completely unbelievable, and that really took me out of it. Apart from that, the storyline has been completely believable and, you know, and realistic from start to finish. But this final straw, no, honestly, just because it probably could have been so easy to make it more plausible, like, you know, if we'd had a few episodes where Tim had been deciding that he was going to tail Stephen, or, you know, maybe a few times he had followed him but Stephen had given him the slip or something, maybe Tim setting up surveillance from the living room outside the front of the Rovers, anything at all that would have meant that he could have seen Stephen leave there on the early morning and then had a reason to follow him. But just the fact that he was there out of the whole of Weatherfield where he could have been, sorry, I think that was a jump too far,
and it also,
quite frankly.
I guess it also, in our mind, it kind of feels even more unbelievable because we haven't established where this canal is in relation to Weatherfield, but in real life we know it's quite far away from the studios, so you know. Well,
it must be even in Coronation Street terms. It can't be just round the corner, because you'd be a pretty stupid.
Jumped it there,
if you got a real body that you killed yourself, you're not going to just put it around the back of your street, are you? You're going to drive quite a way out to dispose of that particular corpse. So that was a real shame, and I think with a little tweak, I could have been more excited in that, and it could have led to a few tense scenes of the following. It's like they just needed a few extra minutes, really.
Yeah, it does. If you're going to have a character like Tim, I mean, he is popular, so you don't need to do too much work to make him heroic because people will already give him the benefit of the doubt. But it does feel like you could have done a bit of work to give him the credit for stumbling upon this, rather,
just complete and utter luck.
Like he's doing some work here. He's actually investigating, and kind of like what Audrey tried to do with Richard Hillman.
Well, yeah, exactly. Her and Archie didn't just stumble upon like, oh, there's Richard walking around the building site where he clobbered Patricia and looking really shifty with a shovel.
We didn't. We haven't really. Stephen's story's not come to an end yet, but we have talked a lot about comparing him to different serial killers and things. I do think that Corrie is doing what it is falling down again in the ending of a serial killer story, where they're not really putting very much thought into how the ending is manifested, because we had Audrey and that lot trying to go up against Richard Hillman, and they couldn't do it, and Richard Hillman outed himself in the end, didn't he? I can't remember what happened because I'm on drugs.
Yeah.
But
he confesses to Gail, doesn't he?
Pat's storyline, he ran away when he was uncovered, and then Anna sort of turned up as kind of a.
She did, didn't she? Yeah, in his final few episodes, Anna was just like, "Hello, I'm out of jail."
She literally popped up and stabbed him.
Yeah.
And they're kind of in danger of using Tim in a similar way, where it doesn't feel as though Tim is an agent of the story. Oh no, he's not. He's not a character. He's not acting like him. He's just literally an agent of the story. He is there to do the plot work of getting Stephen in trouble and hectoring him. I really need him to have a bit more of his own brain power. I know it's difficult for him, but you know what I mean? It needs to be under his steam and under using his.
I want to feel, because Stephen will get properly caught out. I mean, this is clearly the beginning of the end, I'm going to say, for Stephen. But yeah, I want to feel that Tim has earned this victory and not just stumbled upon it.
You're exactly saying what I've been trying to say for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Even with the Leo's body being found on the dig site, it's like, that's also a fair coincidence that the one place that you bury your body, that's where your neighbour happens to be going to do some digging a year later.
You've got to get over some of these coincidences, but some of them feel more glaring.
There weren't any little clues that suddenly people realise, or things that were dropped into previous episodes that made us go, oh, of course, I didn't see that. You want to feel that you could have worked out how it was going to happen. Whereas this, it's just like, oh, somebody just happens to go to the places where the bodies were. It feels a little bit too easy. And even here, I'm thinking with Stephen, like, why would he go to the place where Teddy was? What was the purpose? Was it just to have a moment of reflection, or is he thinking, I need to stop? Go on, what do you think?
It's a totally human reaction to just check and make sure that everything's okay.
Do you think that he's thinking, I can't risk another body being found? I didn't do the brilliant job. Yeah, I mean, the canal's not too deep. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that someone's going to discover this.
This is totally normal human behaviour. What Stephen's doing there is totally makes sense.
I suppose one does go to return to the scene of the crime, doesn't one?
Well, there's also all those stories about people who watch fires they've set.
Yeah.
And it's not just, there's obviously a compulsion to, because you're fascinated with it, that's why you set the fire in the first place. But part of it is also just keeping an eye on things to make sure that nobody knows it was you. To make sure that you've thought of everything.
Yeah. So I wonder what's going to happen next then. Like, Tim, if you just put yourself in Tim's shoes,
can't do it.
He doesn't know what's gone on there. He doesn't think that Teddy's dead. He doesn't believe that Stephen at this point has got another victim. He doesn't think he's a serial killer.
No, that you're saying it like he's decided this.
What?
He has no idea.
No.
He hasn't gone, oh no, that's not possible. Well, he hasn't put it together yet.
Do you think Tim's going to start investigating himself, or is he going to phone up the police and say...
This is the problem. That Coronation Street might be tempted to do a few leaps of logic here. Just to have Tim go, oh, he must have killed someone else. He must be looking for a body in the canal.
Yeah. So
What does Tim think is happening?
That's what I want to know.
Does he? Okay, right. So it would kind of make sense to me if Tim suspected that he really did have something to do with Leo's death, and maybe he threw a murder weapon in the canal.
Yeah, possibly. That's a good point. So I wonder whether... I mean, maybe Tim's going to try dredging he can't get the police out, can he?
He's
to
not
say,
gonna
this guy that you
out.
arrested, he was walking by the canal. Please come and get your dredgers out.
He might very well say it, and they'll say, well, we don't have time for that.
So is Tim going to go and have a fish around himself and find it? Get his diving gear on?
That, to me, at least, would give him a bit of agency.
Yeah, and I think that's possibly what's needed here.
The last thing I want is for him to just stumble his way through, sort of out in Stephen as a serial killer, without having the first clue or ambition to do so, because that would just be the icing on the cake as far as me hating Tim.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to Stephen realising that it was Tim who was watching him the other day, because no doubt about it, Stephen heard that Birdie song ringtone, and obviously the story set up for it was that it would be a very remarkable and noticeable ringtone were you to hear it again. So I'm kind of looking forward to them. I'd like there to be a scene I'm imagining a dinner party scene or something. Although there's no reason for him to be having, or in the pub or something.
You just like dinner party scenes.
I said last week I really do like dinner party scenes. I want Tim's phone to ring for Stephen to realise it's you, but not be able to do anything about it, and just carry on acting as if something's normal. And then Tim would be able to look at Stephen completely cacking himself again and realising, aha, there is something.
See, this is what it needs, because at the moment, if Tim's just I accidentally saw him at the canal and I just happened to be there and I just didn't realise what was going on, blah, blah, blah. You're not on the edge of your seat going, oh gosh, is he going to put it together? You're just thinking, Coronation Street's just going to have him walk in on Stephen writing his diary in really big font about how he killed,
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of tension
and
some kind of drama and a cat and mouse situation, not just... I just accidentally found out. Yeah.
So some people have been putting out there that maybe this is putting a target on on Tim's back, and firstly, do you think that Stephen is going to kill again before he gets his cover? Do you think he will, though?
But then Pat tried to, and he only managed to nick Nicola and Michelle. He didn't actually kill him.
Yeah, he did shoot Michelle in the chest, but even that wasn't enough to finish her off.
Damn it.
Do you think that he will? Are you expecting there to be another...
If he doesn't, I'm going to be really mad.
So am I. I mean, he has had a couple of good ones, but still, we've said many times before, he needs to kill off a major character. I really want there to be a proper surprise. I want there to be something where nobody has expected it. Yeah. Out of the blue, a character goes. Just some kind of big twist before he reaches his final point.
I know lots of people are complaining and saying they don't like the storyline. They've complained from the beginning. They don't like it. They don't like this sort of thing. It's too dark, etc., or it's not good enough, or they don't, etc. Those people are lost. Forget it. You can't please them now. It's too late. They're never going to like anything you do. Don't finish the storyline hastily because you're worried that you are not bringing these people along for the ride. They never got in the car to begin with. I'm in the front. I've got a map. I've got a whole playlist. I bought snacks. I got drinks. I've got a scenic route planned out for us. Why are we taking the motorway?
I think that probably... I really hope that Elaine is safe. The fact that she's not been in it for a while.
Do you know what?
I don't need her to come back and be his final victim.
I was going to say to you, do you remember there was something to do with luggage, and it was just because they came back from Paris.
Yeah.
But I had a thought, imagine how cool it would be if Elaine has been dead this whole time.
I would absolutely love to find out that he has killed somebody without us knowing. Yes. That would be brilliant for me.
She's just in a suitcase.
Yeah, that would be great, but I don't think it's likely to happen. So, I mean, Tim, do you think there's... I know what you'd like, but do you think there is any possibility whatsoever that Tim is not going to come out of this in one piece? What's your percentage chance here about Mr. Metcalf meeting his maker?
I'm not going to say anything.
Why?
Because I'm not going to say anything. But if
Do you know
if we
anything?
no, I don't know it. I don't know. No, I'm not gonna say. But if we move on to the next storyline, we can have a little break, and I'll tell you what I think.
Okay, well, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to say what I think, because
Okay.
I don't know anything. I think that it's very unlikely that Tim is going to get killed, but I think they're probably going to lead us to think that he will, but possibly
Be put
kill.
into near mortal
I
peril.
think that Tim is going to be in a mortal peril sort of situation, but then someone's going to come out to try and save him, or somebody will interrupt them or something, and Stephen will accidentally kill them instead. Because generally, I suppose two out of the three of Stephen's victims have been accidental kills. Yes, he went to Rufus's house, I think, with the express intention of offing him. But I don't know, he seems to have struck me as better as a bit of a bumbling killer. So I think it would be better if his final victim was somebody who was an accidental kill. I think Tim would be too much of a big loss for the programme. I know that he's popular. I don't imagine that Joe Duttine wants to go anywhere. I don't know. But I think he's probably safe. The other one that some people have been suggesting is Sarah Louise. I can't remember whether we've talked about this one on the podcast before. But what would you think if Sarah Lou got the chop? It would make sense to me in a way.
This is the thing. We sit here and go, or I sit here and go, oh, you got to kill someone off. This is important. And then you say, well, what about this character? What about that character? I'm like, no.
I don't think there are many characters in the programme whatsoever that you just could not kill because they're so important. There's such a huge cast. Nobody is bigger than the show.
There's no character that is so pivotal to the plot that if you remove them, it wouldn't. They've proven this, unfortunately, by having their block filming and having characters out of the show for months on end.
Yeah.
They've shot themselves in the foot somewhat.
So,
but there are definitely characters that are incredibly popular and have independent fan bases that would be a big splash to bump off. I think Sarah Lou's kind of on the borderline of that. But there are definitely characters that are higher profile.
I think earlier on this year I would have said no way, there's no chance they're getting rid of her, but you know, the fact that this week she said to Stephen, you're not a killer, are you? Now at the time I was thinking, haha, little does she know, but wouldn't that be brilliant if she's said that exact line and she's the one that's the next victim? He would never go out and kill her on purpose. Yes, she knows a little bit about his forgery, but I don't think that even he would purposely bump off his own niece, who we are led to believe he's got quite a close relationship with because of all the work that they've done together in the past, and you know, their family, their blood. But you know, Tina O'Brien had her 40th birthday recently. She had a big old party.
So she's
what if that was a leaving party?
That's what I was thinking.
What if Tina has decided, you know, I'm 40, I've invested the past 30 years or so of my life on and off to Coronation Street. I think I'm a pretty good actress. Time to spread my wings and try new things. Maybe, I don't know whether she wants to be in the show forever or not. I think there is absolutely a place for her in the show forever if she wants to stay. But she could have decided, now's the time for me to go. I think that also we've got that storyline with Adam earlier this year. Just imagine how that would affect Adam. The ripples that would spread if Sarah Louise got bumped off, that could give the show a massive kick of adrenaline to kind of start off different stories all over the place. Adam he left his wife and he's now going to be left as a widower, and thinking, oh, what if only if I hadn't left her, blah blah blah. I think that could be quite exciting. And as much as I do really, really love Sarah Louise as a character, I think she's probably, you know, maybe she's not the most likely to be killed off, but I think maybe she's the one that I would most like to be killed off. You see,
you're definitely making a very good
good case.
A good case for like how that would make sense.
I mean, just imagine, you know, I'm a little nervous about whenever we see Gail and Audrey's reaction to Stephen being unveiled as a serial killer, because you know they've both actresses in the past have shown that they are absolutely more than capable of putting in a stellar A1 grade performance for this. the way that Gail has been portrayed in recent years, I don't know whether it would work. I almost think that she's going to be sidelined when the truth about her brother comes out. But can you just imagine what Gail and Audrey would be like if they find out that not only is Stephen a serial killer, but he killed, Gail's daughter?
That'd be brilliant.
And that could finally kick off a decent storyline for Gail, like a proper serious storyline for her. I just think that there was huge potential in Sarah Louise being bumped off. Aside from that, you got who else is involved in the story? Peter. Now we've got Carla. I'm going to say Carla's fairly safe, but it needs somebody big that can.
I think
really
you're right. If you're talking about
big ripples,
a ripple effect, then Sarah Louise being killed off provides us with actual plot lines that don't just end with a death. Like Tim, the best friend in the world, Sally and Tim have not been in the show properly for like a year.
Yeah, they
What's their story?
They haven't had a story
the
this
last
year.
time Tim had a story, he was arguing with Steve about his ringtone.
Well, yeah, but last year there was a lot of stuff about Tim's dysfunctions.
His dodgy ticker, yeah. I mean, but that was very insular. Since Kevin's moved on with Abby, and the girls aren't on the show, Sally and Tim really do feel quite isolated. We always make fun of the Baileys for how they don't really talk to anybody, but Sally and Tim, they just feel like they're just shacked up and they don't talk to anybody anymore.
It kind of feels like everybody's like that.
Yes, it does.
Really? Which families have got super close
Tim
links?
Got killed, what would happen? Sally and Steve would cry.
Yeah, there's not even Faye around to really care anymore, is she? She's not going to be coming back.
Obviously,
she's doing her Strictly.
Obviously, things would happen, etc., etc., and they could make up a story out of it. But it feels as though if Sarah Louise was killed, you couldn't help but have to address it in many different aspects, and many different characters would be affected in different ways.
Yeah.
Like you said, like saying about Adam, he'd feel guilty. Would he fall into Dee Dee's arms, or there's a lot.
Would Adam have to take on Harry?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that it feels like it would actually be a catalyst instead of an ending. And Coronation Street, like we've always said, one of the best storylines they ever did was the tram crash, and that was like a cobweb that kind of led out to lots of different strands, instead of it being the end point of a story.
Yeah. Do you think that Jenny's safe?
She better bloody be. I haven't even entertained the thought.
I really, I say that nobody's bigger than the show,
really
but
mad.
I think that although maybe it's just for me because Jenny hasn't had big storylines and she's been brought into this. But I'd be too heartbroken. But I'm not sure. Now, what would it mean for the pub's going through these difficulties? Does Daisy inherit?
No, because there's
nothing to inherit, I suppose, anymore, is there?
No. I can't see that leading to something I would enjoy watching, because it would be, who's the new landlady, and then it would be, is Waterford's gonna put someone in nobody likes. Yeah, I don't want to watch that though. I want Jenny to be the landlady. Yeah,
no, I agree.
That would be it feels to me like anything that would happen that led from Jenny's death would be a substitute for things that would have been better if she'd been around. And I don't want to be horrible to Sarah because I really like the character, but it definitely would be interesting if she was murdered, because of how people would struggle to cope with it.
It'd be a really ballsy move if they did that. The Platt family are the number one family on the street, while Barlow's aside, I suppose, and by having this, having a serial killer kill somebody related to them, that'd be pretty.
And I'm glad it's not my decision to make, because that must be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. There is the possibility of Carla, because we saw a brief scene of her, was it Wednesday's episode, of her trying to phone up about her hair sample that she sent to the DNA labs. So clearly that's not been forgotten about. Not that I thought it would be forgotten, but it hadn't popped into my eye, in my head for a while. But
in your eyes?
Popped into my... Did it say that, like, the next episode, didn't she say that Monday it would be, the results would be ready?
Results.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know I don't care about that anymore?
But
What's going to happen with that?
Well, despite the fact that
She's going to confront him.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really sure how the results could ever possibly show that she was dosed with LSD because the hair's too new. But let's just say, surely, even though it doesn't make any sense, this hair is going to come back saying, yes, you had LSD in the system.
Right, okay, but
so Carla's now going to think, hang on a minute, Stephen.
There's a difference between... I'm not even going to go into it.
No, go into it.
No, it's just to do with like this, like how things, if it degrades in a certain way. I'm not doing. I don't know.
Okay. Gemma's feeling a bit tired. Should we move on to the next story? It's exciting stuff. I mean, clearly we are building up to something big for the middle of October. This is when the event's happening at Coronation Street, 13th of October. Something big is going to happen.
Why did they
Will
arrange
that be
this
the end
when
of
they
Stephen?
know I was going to have appendicitis?
But I really, really hope that this storyline doesn't let off now. Sometimes with these big villains endings...
What, like this?
Thanks, Gemma. Sometimes with the endings of the big villains, you get like nothing for a few weeks beforehand, and then it's all kind of compacted together in 2 episodes leading up to the final climax, and it's like, oh, I could have done with so much more. I want wall-to-wall Stephen drama, cat and mouse stuff, like you said, people putting the pieces together, him getting more and more desperate. I want to be relentless Stephen while we've still got him, and I know that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but that's what I'm asking for over the next month or so. And I want them to have a big trailer for the mid-October week. There hasn't been like a proper cinematic Coronation Street trailer since Imran's death, has there? They haven't.
I think we cursed it.
I think maybe we did when we did our trailer analysis of it.
They were like, I'm not having this again. These people are mad.
I want, like, there could be a trailer with who's going to be his victim, and they could show that the only, as much as I would like to see a trailer with, oh, is it Sarah Louise? Oh, is it Carla? Is it Peter? Is it Tim? Whoever. The problem with that would be, in the back of my head, it'd be like thinking, probably none of them. Because whenever in soap they say who done it or who's it going to be, they'll think, oh, let's be really clever and have it be none of those people.
Yeah, it's got to be everybody walking, like individually walking somewhere. Yeah. Looking behind them.
Yeah.
And then it'll like, and then it'll go like Inception, and then at the end it will go boom, 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 with all their faces, and then it will end with Stephen doing his microwave face.
I do hope we get to see that at least one more time.
Yeah, that would be awesome if that is his final expression when Tim's like going blah 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 blah, and then Stephen goes and then just jumps off a bridge or something.
Or maybe, when they have when they had like Pat and Richard proving to the viewers, yes, they are definitely dead, don't think they're going to bring him back, so they show them zipping up the body bag. Just imagine Stephen maybe pulling his face.
Richard's
it's rigor mortis face.
Just an idea, Corey, just an idea.
I mean, maybe you've already filmed Stephen's death.
They might have already done it.
Do you think that Stephen is going to die? I mean, it feels like there's no way it's not going to happen. As much as I would have liked some of the other major serial killers to, or just villains not to end up dead because it's a little bit cliche, I think probably it is for the best for Stephen.
No,
it's it's just it's the silliest death imaginable.
Get off the podcast.
We had Jeff getting pecked to death, well, almost by chickens. I think that Stephen.
You can rewrite history to say whatever you like.
I think it's only fair for Stephen's storyline that he has a ridiculous death as well. But we'll have to see.
It's got to be something ironic.
Oh, I just don't want Stephen. I just don't want Tim to be the one that finally brings him down. But you never know. There's still plenty of time, maybe. Speaking of death, Gemma, let's move on to the next storyline. So last week's Corrie ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, just like this one did as well, actually, with the news that Shelley had sadly passed away in the middle of the night. So we were all looking forward to finding out what would happen next and what Paul's reaction would be. So are you up for doing a bit of synopsising?
You got to make it bigger so I can see it.
I got to make my text bigger.
Yeah.
Right, go on then. So, Gemma.
Because obviously I feel a real kinship now with this storyline because I am also really ill.
Also really suffering, yeah.
I'm so...
You're doing a good job. Some people have said, don't worry about the podcast this week. Gemma's recovery is what's more important.
That's what I said to you. But you said...
No, she did not. I need to get this on record, everybody. At no point did I bully Gemma into recording a podcast this afternoon.
No, you just made it inevitable.
That's not the same thing. It's too late now. We've started. Do you want to talk about the Shelley storyline?
Yeah, I'm like very much like Shelley.
Right, come on then.
I'm so plucky and
funny
and tragic
and cynical and sarcastic.
And everyone's like, how is she staying so upbeat and not mentioning at all that she had her appendix out?
Right, come on. Shelley, shell shock. Paul, what's going on here then?
On Monday, they're getting ready for the stag do for Paul and Billy, and he's arranged for Shelley to come, and he's surprised he hasn't heard from her.
I'm kind of losing track of when this wedding's supposed to be. I know they did say that it was going to be in 4 weeks' time, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that might have been a 1 week ago or 10 weeks ago. So when they had the stag do on Monday, I was like, oh, are they getting married this week or something?
Usually on Corrie they have it quite soon.
Well, yeah,
in
usually
real life you don't tend to.
Yeah, generally on Coronation Street, the stag do happens the episode 1 or 2 before the actual wedding, doesn't it? I think that's, a traditional thing to have happen. But I don't know whether the wedding is going to be this coming week or whether it's the week after. Got that to look forward to, haven't we? I'm sure there's going to be no drama or tragedy there.
Summer presents Billy and Paul with this Polaroid camera, and I was like, that's off Argos, isn't it? It's got to be. But it's not.
Isn't it?
That was stupid. That was Mr. Trick, didn't they?
Did we mention I don't think we mentioned this before. You can buy Trevor and Connie off Argos, can't you? Who was it? Somebody found it. I don't know whether it was it somebody on Reddit maybe had found the little Tyrannosaurus Rex and the creepy doll from the Argos idents. You can actually buy. Gemma, I got your Christmas present all sorted this year.
That's weird because it's my birthday.
It's actually right. I'm gonna. Would you like a Trevor for your birthday?
I'd like a free one.
Would you kind of think it was sort of funny if I got you a Trevor for your birthday?
I wouldn't actually, because
I'm going to do it.
No,
he's quite cheap. He's only about £8. Argos what?
Argos needs to send us one.
We're not getting a free Trevor in the post, Gemma.
Why not?
Right. Sorry. Just Christmas present ideas for everyone there, for the Coronation Street fan in your life.
The person who does Trevor's voice is the lad from this country.
Yeah, we've been finding
out
about
I think
Trevor.
He's brilliant and hilarious. I think he's great.
Continue.
So, this you can't buy this Polaroid camera from Argos, but you can buy other ones, and they're bloody expensive.
Well, that's very generous of Summer then, doesn't it? Yeah, this photo that they took of the three of them looking happy on the sofa, if that doesn't show up in a month or so's time or at some point in the future, that's gonna be at his funeral, isn't it? There's gonna be a giant version of it framed as Billy tries to get through the service with his, hands clutched together.
So, Paul says this whole day is gonna be perfect, thusly ensuring someone at least will die.
And it is a day stag do and not an evening one like one might normally expect, but it seems like all the events that happen on Coronation Street happen during the day.
You think they're going to happen.
No.
Bernie finds her phone after she lost it for a while, and she gets a message from Shelley, and Shelley's like, I've had my appendix out. She says, I've got to give this market stuff a swerve. I'm not feeling very well.
Yeah, she leaves Bernie a message. So this was obviously recorded before she died.
No, you can't prove that.
I'm wondering whether this message is going to come and bite her in the bum or something.
Evidence of the afterlife.
Of something.
She said market stuff. That is good. That could cover lots of bases. Like, we were going to go down the market and buy dog blankets.
Well, Bernie does get pulled in by the police later, but I don't think this answer phone message comes. Let's carry on. We'll talk about that. Carry on. I won't interrupt you. I promise. I'll try not to interrupt you at all.
Every time you interrupt me, I just have a little rest. I don't mind. So, Dev tempts her back to bed, so it all gets forgotten. The bistro gets rainbowed up for a stag do because Gemma's decorating it.
It was a very gay stag do, wasn't it? Like,
okay, if that's what they want, that's cool. But I don't know. It's starting to feel a bit like anytime anyone who's gay does something on Coronation Street, they can only do it with the
rainbows.
accompaniment of rainbows and confetti, which it's bordering on. It's going all the way back around from tolerance to like being kind of super homophobic.
I wouldn't say it's that.
But you know what I mean? It's like, you like rainbows, don't you?
I mean, can't it just be...
After a while, no.
Yes, we're gay, but it doesn't mean that I need to have a gay theme.
It's not the theme of my wedding.
Mate, I mean, yes, I know we're Coronation Street's first gay wedding, possibly to come soon.
I think it's just because
why can't we just make it, vicar themed, or what's Paul into? I don't know.
He's the tart, but he's the vicar. I mean, it makes sense. It's what they wanted.
Well,
I know that people involved in this storyline, depending on, different actors are gay. They probably had input in it. It's perfectly fine. It's none of my business. It's not my place to judge. I'm not gay, but it does. I think it's because it came so close from Pride, and probably the props department were like, "We're not putting this away. You just use it for the stag do."
Well, Summer is saying this is a little bit too much, isn't it? It's Gemma.
Well, she was worried about there being
Let's put it.
phallic symbols.
Oh yeah,
on display.
And you know what shape lollies?
Phallic.
Yeah. Gemma's like, no, this is exactly what they want. I guess it makes sense if it's Gemma, but equally, I would have thought that maybe Gemma knows a little bit more about her own brother to make it more individualistic. I don't know. But I don't know what Paul likes. No clue. So yeah, let's rainbow flag it up. Anyway.
So Jess.
I think it was Jess. I wrote Jess in the notes. It was Officer Jess, was it, on
Jess,
Monday?
the police officer, and another colleague come around to number 7 to speak to Bernie because they've got questions. They've got a potential fraud investigation that they've opened up against Shelley. And Bernie's like, I don't know nothing about it. But she's very flustered and she goes and gets dressed and she goes to the station with them and she's trying to deny everything. She's like, well, she's more of a mate of Paul's, don't really know Shelley that well. I don't know anything about these purchases she said she's made, barely know her. And then they show her some text messages and it looks quite incriminating. But Benny's like, well, sometimes I pick up parcels for her. I don't know anything about what they are. I didn't sell anything. Why don't you speak to her about it? I don't understand why you're asking me all these questions. Ask her what she thinks. And they said, well, they kind of looked, shocked, like she doesn't know. And they say that's not going to be possible.
I don't know whether they were shocked that she didn't. I kind of read that as like, ooh, are we allowed to tell her?
No, I don't think they would wonder that.
Oh, I don't know.
So this is when we don't see, but we assume that Bernie's informed that Shelley cannot answer any questions for herself because she's dead.
I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to see the moment that either Bernie or Paul were informed about Shelley's death. I think that both actors could have done a brilliant job of the shocked reaction to this, but all we get to see, I hate it when they do this, like, we've got some sad news to tell you, and then the next scene later is them saying, what do you mean she's dead? Or reacting 5 minutes later. It's kind of missing out the key drama there.
We don't need it in this storyline. We've already had key drama. Paul's got MND. We're going to have Paul dying at some point. We don't need this storyline to be full of everyone getting told bad news.
No, I would have preferred it, in my opinion.
That's because you're a horrible person.
I just like to see people's misery.
And I'm very hard done by because I don't. Did you say that I had my appendix out?
Oh, I didn't realise.
Earlier in this week. So I'm quite ill.
It's not ill. I'm the one that's ill. I've got a bit of a cough.
Yeah, okay.
That's I've actually caught something.
This is it, everybody. Can you hear this? Absolute nonsense.
I'm suffering.
I got part with this. He's been acting miserable and hard done by since I got home, actually, from the hospital, and being all like, no, but I'm fine. I've just got a bit of a cold. Oh, what can I take for my cold? Oh, I've got a bit of a sore throat. Like, shut up. And now you've given it to me. Have I mentioned it? No.
I forgot that I'd given it to you.
Yeah, thanks very much. You gave me that, but you didn't give me dinner. Okay, so... Right, you're going to shut up about it. You can't compete with me.
I can't win.
Nobody can compete with me. I'm the hardest done by of all the people on the planet.
Right, go on.
Okay, so party's in full spring at the bistro swing, and Gemma's wondering where Shelley is, and but the guests of honour arrive, ball and pilly, and they're loving it. The party poppers, rainbows, shots, games. Paul's wondering where Bernie's got to, and when she finally arrives, she's very distracted, and she talks to Paul on his own in a booth, and the news, as you say, gets broken during the break, and Paul's struggling to hold it together, and he wants to go to the flat to be near to Shelley's essence.
Do you think that it was right of Bernie to break that news to him during his party?
There's a conversation that was had on our Facebook group about this, and I don't think it's a right way, because you, like, on the one hand, yeah, it ruined the party. On the other hand, it's not her decision to decide when he's allowed to know something, and it would have been tainted one way or the other, because he would have and thought to himself, "Oh, that time I was having fun and Shelley was dead and I didn't even know." It doesn't. It's good. It would have ruined it anyway.
I just think
That's
that
my opinion.
if it's going to be tainted one way or the other, just let him have a nice party, because now he's not got a nice stag party to remember back to. What Bernie's done there is the sort of thing that I probably would have done.
Yep.
Like if I've got something horrible I need to tell you,
Yep.
so I'll just come out and say it at the completely wrong moment, won't I? And then you say, "Why'd you bloody tell me like that for? Why'd you tell me then? Why couldn't you have just kept it to yourself for a while?"
I don't say that.
Don't you? I thought, well, I don't know.
When have I ever said that to you?
Maybe I'm just thinking that's the sort of thing that I would do. I don't know. So I think,
I would never say you're not allowed to tell me, as
Okay.
Unless it's some kind of dramatic moment where I'm going up to do my speech to thank everybody for voting me in to be Prime Minister or something. I don't think there's a moment at which I'm so important that I can't know something.
I just don't like breaking bad news to you sometimes. Maybe I'm not very good at softening you up for it.
Nobody likes breaking bad news.
Well, anyway, I just think it was a bit harsh, and the whole stag do was ruined, and Gemma tried so hard to make it look all pretty.
I think Gemma should just give up trying to do parties.
I suppose they had mostly a nice time. We just didn't get to see much of it.
They were all drinking, so...
Anyway.
Go to Shelley's flat, and Paul takes one of her candles?
Cardigans.
He's become a cardigan pervert.
Well, like Daniel.
All the men turn into cardigan perverts. Women, listen carefully. If you're going to die, burn your cardies first. These men can't be trusted.
Who's Paul going to get to dress up in Shelley's cardigan and pretend that she's her?
Billy.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, he's going to be wearing it on their wedding day.
Can you just sit in this wheelchair, please, and put the cardigan on and crack some jokes? And Billy's
he'll be like, "Oh, I love cardigans."
No, can't crack any jokes.
I don't know. I'm not funny though. Yeah. So he feels guilty that he knew that she wasn't right, but he, and he's saying, "Oh, she was always there for me, and I couldn't return the favour. I didn't even get to say goodbye." And then Jim, the PA, aka the carer, turns up, and Billy's reminiscing with him about how awesome Shelley was and what on earth is he going to do without her. And because she was the only one who really knew what he was going through.
Yeah.
And Paul says to Jim, "Was she on her own when she died?" And he looks, very. You said he looks shifty. I just think he was uncomfortable because nobody wants to say that somebody was alone.
Can we go into theory territory here? Because this isn't something at all, I don't think, that we talked about on last week's podcast, but other people have since mentioned it online, and I'm like, yes, that sounds like a lot of sense. Did Jim the PA, was he involved in a little bit of assisted suicide here?
No.
But I think it makes a lot of sense if he did. He did look a little bit dodgy on Friday's episode last week, now I come to think about it, when the paramedics come and Shelley's found without any pulse. And I think he looked really shifty, but maybe I only thought that because I'd read the theory that he was involved in helping her end her own life before I watched this episode. But it would make an awful lot of sense to me if he's some kind of secret serial MND sufferer bumper offerer, when Paul is also having his own story about wanting that. He's trying to confide in Todd and sort of saying, "Oh look, you can do what you can to help me. I want to go out on my own terms." Todd's not going to do it. We're not going to have Todd help Paul out, but maybe Jim the PA would. I'm going to say that makes too much sense. Are you not buying that?
Nope.
Why?
Because you could explain his expressions by the fact that she died by herself and he's upset about it.
But don't you think that would make sense as a story?
No, because you don't need Shelley to have asked for assistance to end her life in order for it to be an option for Paul. You just end up having two storylines at the same. And she obviously wasn't ready to go, so why would she ask to be helped to leave?
I need to go back.
She wasn't ready. She was in the middle of doing stuff. She had loose ends to tidy up. If she had asked somebody to do that, she would have said to them, "Oh, by the way, delete my phone, hide these parcels, tell Bernie." It's not like she would have said, "Oh, remember that deal we had?" and then Jim says, "Say no more," and gets a pillow out.
Well, maybe she said maybe the deal with Shelley and Jim was like, I want you to help me,
but don't let me know what's going to happen.
Spring it on me.
I want it to be a surprise.
Yeah, element of surprise.
No.
I give you permission to
make
smother
any
me
sense.
at some point in the next month or two, but don't let me know it's coming.
I like to be kept on my toes.
Yeah.
I like a bit of excitement in my final days. You see what? It doesn't really make sense, does it?
You do make some good points there, but
I mean, I thought about it myself when I was in hospital with the appendix. I was like, wow.
How many times
I don't know. I don't want to be a burden on my husband.
I didn't realise this was a drinking game.
My husband was going to have to make chicken nuggets for me, and he doesn't know which way the baking tray goes. So
I did put last night's dinner upside down on the upside down baking tray.
You just smother me.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we're not allowed to do that on the NHS.
It was
and
great.
I was like,
we had alpha bites
typical.
with chicken nuggets last night, and I spelled out our names in it. It was brilliant.
I knew you'd like that. This is how I'm engaging you.
Can we have like chicken drumsticks? Or no, is it turkey?
You want turkey twizzlers?
Oh no! I want Bernard Matthews turkey drummers.
Do you want Finder's crispy pancakes?
Yes. This is brilliant. Now I'm in charge.
I knew that if I bought children's food, you would be engaged and try to learn how to cook it.
Yeah, in baby steps, though. Mm-hmm. So has Shelley helped herself on her way or not? We don't really know, but it's certainly not heavily implied in the show, so I suppose it could go either way.
You can interpret his expression in a different way, that he just I think universally it's considered to be sad if you die by yourself. And I'm saying that because I don't think that's sad at all. I remember the story about this is quite a sad story for some. I don't find this sad at all, but I know people think this is a sad story. The woman who played Samantha in Bewitched.
I don't know who you mean.
The actress who played her.
I'll find you tell the story and I'll find out who it is.
Well, she knew that she had. I can't remember what she died of, but she knew that she was dying, and she was such a intensely private person that she said to her friends and family who were gathered around her deathbed, "Oh, can you step outside, please?"
Elizabeth Montgomery.
That's it. This is the story I remember reading, and whether this is true, I don't know. But she said, "Can you step outside because I'm going to die?" And they went outside and she just died by herself. And I was reading that going, that's a woman, that is. She knew what she wanted and she did it. And I think that if that's what she wanted, good for her. And I quite like that myself, because I don't want people hanging around looking at me while I'm dying. It's embarrassing.
You don't know whether you died of embarrassment or whatever else it was that was ailing you.
I'm too British to be watched while I die. This is not cricket. So anyway, so I think that expression from Jim is just, it's sad that she died by herself, and it's also sad that I was supposed to be looking after her and I wasn't here. You would feel bad. I'm not saying that it's justified, but you probably would feel bad about it.
He's probably wondering, like, am I out of a job now?
Well, he is, yeah. He's like, do you want a PA? So he said it just happened very quickly. Her cough turned into pneumonia. She couldn't fight it off. And Paul immediately decides that all of Shelley's friends and family who've known her up until the last month or so are irrelevant, and he's going to plan her funeral.
I think they have kind of
They've
ladled on the fact that she isn't, the most popular of people. I can see her not being a sort of person that a lot of people would like to be around, because she's
dead now.
She's a bit, the dark sense of humour and everything.
Can I just tell you, there's a lot of
people up.
I'd quite like to plan their funerals.
But I did think
I don't actually like.
I did think it was a little bit much for Paul to have said, "Oh, I'm the only one that knows her. I know her better than anyone else in the world." It's literally been 6 weeks since we first met Shelley.
I get this.
And it's not like he's been around her house all the time then either.
I know, I get the point of the story, but it does seem a bit presumptuous.
I'm not downplaying the relationship that was built, or maybe I am a little bit, that was built up between Paul and Shelley. I think that they had some fantastic scenes together. I really, really loved all the scenes they had together, and that's why when this shock death came last week, I was particularly gutted, because that was something I was really, really enjoying about Coronation Street, just seeing those two having a laugh together in the face of impending doom. But to make out that Paul knows everything about her, and he's he's the closest person in her life. I don't know. Maybe it was not that I would tell him that.
No.
You imagine you just comforting a grieving person.
But you didn't know her.
You didn't know her that well. You only known of her. You'll forget about her soon. Don't worry.
And
you'll move on to the next victim.
Shelley's dying. Shelley's like the red coat of this situation, isn't she? She's dying to prove the situation is serious.
Yeah.
She's reminding Paul of his mortality. She's making him understand he has to make plans while he can. She hasn't got a funeral plan put together. They talk very briefly about stuff. Jim mentions that she said she was going to talk to him about it, but it's now down to Paul.
Oh yeah, she wants a gospel choir, doesn't she,
Yeah.
for a funeral? Oh, happy days. Oh, happy days.
Don't. I'm really distracted because our neighbour is in the garden. I can see him. And
I know.
A bee has just gone down his hoodie.
What, really?
Or something, because he started jumping about and pulling his clothes off.
Well, we're recording in a different place at the moment. Usually we're in the podcast recording room,
different
but
now.
I couldn't leave a Gemma off the sofa to get her in there today. So we're in the lounge and we're kind of looking outside. Straight opposite us is our big bifold doors. And our neighbours are wandering around in the garden, possibly wondering what we're up to.
He was just walking along and he suddenly started waving his hands around his head.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because at first he thought he'd been attacked by the brambles that's growing off his magnolia tree, but...
It was actually
Oh dear.
Anyway.
Could be worse, his appendix could be falling out. So, he knows what she wants. So he calls Todd round, does Paul, and tells him he wants to organise Shelley's funeral. The other question is, organising a funeral is not just pitching up and going, what font do I want for the programmes? It's who's paying for it? Where are we doing it? What does she want to have done with her remains? What's her estate like? Who's paying?
Mm.
And he just seems to be worrying about what gospel choir to pick. So he calls Todd round and Todd and Paul chat about this, and Todd's like, I can't really help you because I work for a cutthroat, evil, capitalist corporation. You need to go to Shuttleworths to get this done. So in no way is George grateful or gracious about the fact that Todd's punting work his way. But that's a different
George
story.
doesn't know this yet.
No, I know, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it in the future.
Okay.
So Billy and Paul are left in the flat, and Paul says, I'm fed up with everything going wrong. Every time I think things are going well, something ruins it. I'm really sad. This was like us this week because I had my appendix out.
Did you?
And then your tyre.
Oh yes, I also had drama this week.
So I don't know what he's talking about.
I can't believe I got this far in the podcast and I even mentioned that I had a burst tyre.
I know he's got
week.
a terminal illness and his friends died.
I did bring this on myself. I drove into a curb a little bit.
I told you not to do that.
Little bit. For all these, I've been driving for 20 years now, and Gemma's always going on to me about don't drive into curbs too far. Don't do that. Don't scuff things.
Don't drive against curbs.
Tyres are pretty tough.
Do not drive your tyre into the side of the curb.
Yeah, so I was parking down. I had to drive down the road to the other half of our school earlier this week, and I parked. And I'm going to say there was a very jagged curb. It's not. I'm sure it had like razor blades and things coming out of it.
I'm just going to look at the picture again.
When I drove into it, I did hear a bit of a loud scuffing noise. I was like, took that a bit too strong. Never mind. I bet
you thought to yourself, I'm bloody glad Gemma's not in the car because she would have moaned about that.
Yeah, I probably did. And then I went on my way, and then a few hours later, one of my colleagues texted me, just walked past it and said, Mike, your tyres, I think you got a flat tyre.
I'm looking at this curb, Michael. It looks like a normal curb.
No, you're not looking at it properly. Anyway, so we had to get the AA out, and it's very dramatic. You didn't notice the fact that I said Mike there. You usually hate it when I refer to people calling me Mike.
But I don't say it every time, do I?
Well, I was talking with one of my
It's not like my appendix.
I was talking with one of my other colleagues this week, and I was sitting next to her on a computer, and she was reading an email that I'd sent, and it said from Michael at the bottom, and then she's like, I don't get what. Are you more Michael or are you Mike? Because everyone just calls you Mike. And I said, I don't mind either way. I identify as both. And she says, yes.
You identify as both.
Yeah, I do. But she says, yeah, sometimes like when you ring up on the phone and you say, hi, it's Michael, I don't know who it is. And then I realise, oh, it's Mike. So it feels, yeah. So
well, I'm sorry, but I'm your wife. I get to decide what you're called.
That's what I said. I said, Gemma calls me Michael.
Yeah.
But my dad calls me Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone at work that calls me Michael.
Well, maybe it's my special pet.
I sign off emails with both. I alternate.
This is not interesting.
Sometimes if people write an email to me that says "Dear Michael," I'll put from Mike in the reply, and vice versa, just to screw with them.
Yeah.
I'm both. But I would never say, "Hello, I'm Mike."
Well, I'm only ever referred to as Your Majesty.
That's what adventures I've been getting up to this week. Back to Coronation Street, Gemma. Todd's gone out for a walk.
Paul's trying to make out that life's so difficult for him, but I don't see his flat tyre anywhere.
Or a massive gash in his stomach.
Yeah. So Paul goes to Victoria Gardens and Todd finds him there alone, and he offers his condolences, he offers a sympathetic ear, and Paul says he realises how lucky he is to be with Billy, which is true.
Oh, our neighbour started...
That's fine, don't worry about it.
He started sawing away at something.
When I had my appendix out, which I haven't brought up yet, I was just grateful that I've got you to pick things off the floor for me. That's the main thing you're good for at the moment.
Yeah, I also brought a litter picker home from school so that Gemma can help herself out.
And you said, here you go, you can pick things up with that. And I said, thank you, did you wash it? And you went, no. Stupid man.
Thanks.
Just patting you gently. So it is true, he's got somebody to plan his funeral for him, but his days are numbered, and he says Shelley didn't even get to die on her own terms. And this is when... No, that's the point of the story. And this is when it comes around to him talking about a sister dying again. He wants to die when he wants, under his own control. It's the last thing he's got left. And Todd says, this is deja vu. You're not suggesting what I think you are you? And there are other options. What do you mean? What do you mean? Other options? What, like turn into a salmon and swim upstream until you rot to pieces?
Turning into a cocoon and coming out as a butterfly.
Come out as a big fat caterpillar just to screw with people's heads.
Or reincarnation.
Have you thought about becoming a Buddhist?
I don't know whether Billy would be up for it, but...
Well, but he's got to just deal with it. So, he's like, you think there are things to think about, like giving yourself better quality of life options. And Paul says, no, this is what I want, and you need to promise to not tell Billy or my family. On Tuesday, Todd's really not up for talking about it still, and Bernie and Paul go around to Shuttleworth's, and George is promising them to have the funeral will be great. He says a funeral to remember, but I'm just going to point out we can't have too many in 1 year, so maybe we won't see Shelley's.
Yeah, I think we will. I think it's going to be very poignant. I don't know whether I want to see it or not, but I think it's going to be, Paul going along to a funeral and saying this is going to be me soon. Dramatically speaking, I think that would be quite.
No, but but are people going to be punch drunk with it when it's Paul's? That's what my point is. Can you really? How many tears can be wrung from your eyes?
Yeah, but I don't think Paul's on his way out just yet. Well, not if he's gonna go naturally.
It's still going to be fairly soon. Not but based on my feelings about the pace of the story.
No, I think we still get to see it.
Well, I don't. I'd say I don't only go to one funeral a year, so they better be careful. Okay. Back at the flat, Bernie's telling Paul he shouldn't be spending all the money. Oh yeah, he's basically saying all the money you gave me, Mum, I'm going to use it to spend on Shelley's funeral because it's important to me and she doesn't have anyone else.
# best send off ever.
Yeah, and she's saying no, this money is I gave it to you to help you. For you, for your assistance things like litter pickers and husbands that pick things off the floor and Vinder's crispy pancakes to entice Billy to cook you dinner. But he's like, well, no, you gave it to me for whatever I want, and I want this. This is what I need. So later off,
after all the struggles that family have been through financially this year, to just try and scrape together a few pennies to buy himself a stair lift or whatever.
Far be it from me to victim blame. I'm about to victim blame, but it feels to me like there's definitely seems to be a really strong correlation between the family that is really poor at making decisions with money and the family that has money struggles. There's a very strong correlation between those two things, and it's always Winter Browns. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why don't I have any money? Here's £10,000 for a gospel choir.
It's because it just usually just drop out of nowhere, doesn't it? Like, I just will complain about being poor for a while.
Paul's like, don't
something
worry about
will
it.
happen.
When I need a stair lift or a wheelchair or something, someone will just give me one for free. So Paul and Todd are talking later on about this assisted dying thing again, and Paul says, I trust you to respect my decision. And Todd says, I really want to help you, but I'm worried.
This was a really sweet scene. I think that Paul and Todd have got... I think that
I said this recently. For all we made fun of the 3 gay dad stuff, they've turned this into an incredibly solid relationship between these 3 men. And actually, I would say that the relationship with Billy's the weak point.
That's what I was going to say that as well. I think it's because Billy's kind of on edge and he's
right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and he's expected to say and do the right thing because he's the vicar, he's the actual partner here, and he's, he doesn't know what the right thing to say is, but so he's maybe not coming across as being natural.
But he's also, it's remote, isn't it? And it's all very rote and nothing interesting or surprising or different about how Billy is reacting, which, it's fine, but
he feels like he's going to say the wrong thing, so he doesn't say anything, or it just comes out as kind of stilted. But with Todd, he can just be completely natural with Paul because that level of expectation isn't there for him, and then you just had this really nice bonding sort of moments.
He's not supporting him in the same way.
No, he's just being a mate. When Paul's there going, it was later on in the episode, and Paul says to Todd, "Oh, you're my best mate in the whole world," and it was just really nice.
Yeah, what happened to your last one? So, Todd says to Paul, "Promise me one thing, don't think you can just give up and stop fighting and stop doing everything you can to make use of every moment you got left." And Paul smiles and says, "I promise, I'm going to adjust my priorities." And so he speaks to Bernie in the pub and says, "I'm going to scale back these funeral plans because I don't think Shelley would have wanted me to have done this."
I don't think that Shelley would have wanted a massive
Shelley would have been one of these
all singing, all dancing funeral anyway. Stick me in a cardboard box and chuck me in the tip.
I think that's really obnoxious because it's not about you when you're dead, it's about everyone else.
Yeah, but I don't think...
I get the point, I get the idea, I get the joke, it's supposed to be funny, but it's also not very helpful because you actually cannot do that. So what actually is it that you want me to do? She
just doesn't want a massive, shindig.
Well, don't worry, no one cares. Apparently, Paul's the only one who cared about her, and he's only known her 6 weeks. Right, on Wednesday, Billy and Paul are in the cafe with George talking about... Yeah, hang on. Saying I want to be chucked in a bin when I'm dead, throw me in the rubbish, is very much, I don't want any presents for my birthday, isn't it? Yeah. Don't worry about getting me anything for Christmas. Yes, but I have to. Social convention is insisting upon this, and you are making it more difficult by pretending that you don't care.
You know who's the worst for both of those things?
Me.
No, my dad.
Oh, your dad's terrible.
My dad, and I love him, but he's said, "I don't want any fuss when I die." He's northern now.
He is northern now.
He does live up. He has moved to Derby. I don't want any fuss when I die. Like my mum had the biggest funeral, didn't she? At Coventry Cathedral.
She was great. She knew exactly what she wanted, and she was like, "Right, stick me in the freezer for a month because I want this particular man to do it, and he's going to be in Australia."
My mum's funeral was quite an affair.
We had to wait. What was the job?
It was a conductor at some...
Yeah, we had to wait for a really fancy conductor to return from touring in Australia to do the ceremony. But my dad knew what she was about.
She did. It was, and
it was good.
It was a good old funeral, that.
Yeah.
But my dad's just like, I don't want anything. And he's exactly the same for birthdays and Christmas, isn't it? Just get me a bottle of Jack Daniels or whatever, I'm fine.
I want to make you happy. It makes me happy. And funerals are the same. It's like I want to acknowledge you, and I don't want to be sitting there while you're dead and I'm sad, having the extra burden of thinking I've done it wrong.
I don't want to risk you kind of looking down from on high above us and going, I didn't mean it. God, what's this rubbish?
I don't want a Japanese curse, like a lady with black hair following me around because I disposed of your corpse incorrectly and just chucked it down the well like you told me.
Right. Anyway,
Wednesday, Billy and Paul are with George in the cafe talking about these plans for the funeral.
It's saying Monday. That next episode, it's going to be Monday. It's going to be Shelley's funeral, apparently.
And Paul's written some words he wants to say, and he asked George to read them.
But he did it on ChatGPT.
Yeah, probably. Billy asks Paul if he's thought about his own funeral, and Paul's like, "Ha ha ha ha! I'm never gonna die." No, I can't remember. He just doesn't talk about it.
Yeah, he just gives a flippant answer.
He's been thinking He's been thinking very much about how he's going to happen rather than what will happen afterwards, which I think is fair enough.
Yeah.
So, Billy's like, something's off. Is anything else bothering you? And he's like, yeah, I've heard that Gemma's had her appendix out. I'm just really concerned because I don't know if the podcast is going to come out on time. And the longer she leaves it, the more I'm worried that she's really, really ill. But I know she's going to troop through. The thing about her is that she will keep going and she will damage her body and her mind just to put the podcast out for everybody. Just selflessly working herself.
She's fine, everybody.
Perhaps to death.
She's absolutely fine.
So Paul says it's just about the funeral, to be honestly, and thinking I could be next. Honestly, Billy, what a question. Something seems off about you while we're planning your best friend's funeral. He's died of the same thing you're going to die of. You're right.
I can't remember, at some point during the week, I don't think I mustn't have written it down here, we do see a couple of scenes with Paul having a look at that assisted dying website, don't we? And he quickly closes down the laptop, so that's clearly what's playing on his mind here. But God, I don't want him to tell Billy. I don't want Billy to know this. He's already insufferable.
Billy's going to ruin it.
Yeah.
Later on, Billy tells Paul that at this funeral, you only have to stay as long as you want to. You want to duck out early, it's fine. And then we see Paul
this is where he's looking at the funeral website at the end.
No, assisted dying website.
Yes,
not funeral website.
Yes. So how did you find it?
And again, just to say, I know I'm making jokes here. It's what Shelley would have wanted.
Exactly. She would. We're doing it to honour Shelley, aren't we?
In the spirit of
being
Shelley.
Flippant about the whole thing.
Well,
you know that we love this storyline.
You know that it affects us deeply, and also I know that it affects lots of people who are listening deeply. But we all have to cope with it in our own different ways, don't we?
I've been enjoying this again this week. I think
it's one of the best stories.
I was maybe hoping for a little bit more of something after the shock death.
Yeah, we
moved on to the funeral
voice again.
It moved on to the funeral arrangements and the assisted dying thing a little bit too soon. I wanted to see that the scene where he goes round her flat and hugs her cardigan and everything. Well, I thought was very, very moving, and I think they could have wrung a little bit more misery and despair and grief out of that.
I think there's plenty of that to come. So I don't think this is what I'm trying to say.
And the other thing with it I
think with Shelley's funeral is going to be very different from whatever Paul ends up with. That's all I'm saying, because it's just going to... You want Paul's funeral to be the main beat of this story, not Shelley's.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, Billy won't want to do it by halves, will they? They'll have the whole street getting together doing a big shindig for him. No, I think they could have done a bit more. And I also think...
have rainbow flyers.
I also thought that... the whole thing with the laptops has been kind of put to one side pretty quickly. So we saw Bernie. Back, do you think? Because Bernie was hauled into the police station. She said, "No, I don't know anything about it," and then it wasn't mentioned again. Is it like, well, now she's dead, it doesn't matter? Do they still have all the stock?
I mean, if you're going to pin Jim looking shifty, it could be connected to the fact he knew there was a scam going on. Because she said she kept her PAs out of it.
It just feels like it was a little bit pointless having the whole scam side of the story, because they managed to wring a couple of weeks' episodes out of it. I think
far from over. Maybe Bernie's going to get arrested at the funeral.
She could be, I suppose. I mean, the whole thing was, she's taken a big risk being involved with this, and maybe she gets sent to prison while Paul is wasting away outside, possibly.
But then it feels like Laura dying of cancer when she said that she killed
Nick Whelan.
Yeah.
I mean... Yeah, I hope they do more of that, otherwise it feels like a little unnecessary wrinkle to the story that was actually doing quite well without it.
Paul should have spent the money on Shelley's funeral, because then if they get arrested for it, at least they can't get the money back.
There is still this answer phone message, wasn't there, on Monday mornings, on Monday's episode?
In that.
There was, because it sent about the market.
It said market stuff.
It feels like the police maybe just gave up on it. I don't know.
I know, but I feel like if you've got a good lawyer, the lawyer could be like, well, you can't, what does that, it doesn't mean anything.
Go on.
Yeah.
What's your forecast for Paul now? Do you think he is going to... Are they going through with this assisted dying story? Are they Hayley Croppering him here? Or...
I just don't think...
How do you feel that Coronation Street are showing it? Because I think we're supposed to, at this side, be on the side of Todd, that's saying, no, you shouldn't do this, there's better options. I don't feel that Corrie is making us feel like, this is what Paul wants.
I don't feel like we need to be educated about why somebody would want to do this.
I know it was almost 10 years ago or so, but I feel like we got educated
We got
enough
the point,
with
and
Hayley's story.
I think everyone's actually incredibly sympathetic towards the idea behind it. I have always felt quite supportive of the concept until it sort of became apparent to me that it is ripe for abuse, and there are many things that can be an incredible drawback to it. And I think that it's foolhardy to pretend that it is like a completely unproblematic solution. So I think honestly, I think the debate is more nuanced than it was when Hayley was doing it, because that was just kind of opening the discussion. But I think I kind of do feel like we've moved on a bit from that. I don't think it's a really important, big, current issue in this country.
No, it doesn't feel like it.
I don't think they've got the fingers on the pulse of anything here, because they're doing a storyline again, which makes me think it's not actually going to be about assisted dying. It's just about taking control. And I think if Paul can do that in a different way, the storyline will be just as powerful. And that's why I'm gunning for him, sacrificing himself. I think what's going to happen is Ryan's going to be in his bedroom. He's going to be there. There's going to be heckled online. People are going to be going, get your pants off. I'll give you $1,000. Get your pants off. Then Paul will like leap in front of the camera with his pants undone, and then die of shame.
Nothing for him to be ashamed of down there, is there?
No, but I mean, he's got to sacrifice his life, and he's also got to jump in front of something.
Okay.
And the only thing I can think of,
I don't think he's doing much jumping at the moment. He'd have to be like catapulted from his wheelchair. That's how he's flying through the air.
Well, I mean, you guys sort out the details. I'm ill.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry if that's not good enough, Michael. Sorry if that doesn't make sense to you, but that's the only way I can think of to do.
As much as I do like the idea of Jim the PA being secretly involved in offering all of these M&D sufferers, even though I know that's
like
wrong,
Harold
and it's like
Shipman
it's not necessarily needed for this story, because this is supposed to be a character driven and issues and everything, and that's making it a little bit more seedy and dramatic and everything. I kind of like the idea of it, but I'd rather at the end of the day that he didn't go that way. But I get how it makes sense for the story, because are they going to have Peter Ash wither away? No, they're not. I
just don't want anyone to watch this and get the idea that somebody with MND watching this thinking, I'm a burden, just like Paul. I shouldn't be around. I need to find a way out, or I'm out of control as well, you know. I'm not saying that Coronation Street is irresponsible for doing the storyline, but what I am saying is that there are other ways to feel like you're in control. And also, it's horrible. It's horrible. I wouldn't want to face this, but there are ways of dying a good death. And there are people that work very hard to try to create environments and situations. There's no good way of doing it, but I know that it's possible, and maybe that would be a more positive way to explore hospice care and stuff like that. We both know from experience. Which was
the Sinead's story. They kind of shied away from that. They dipped their toe into her going to a hospice, but then never really. I think she wanted to stay at home.
Yeah, I mean, we both watched, you know, people die. I'm not being heartless here. I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm not trying to diminish or undermine the experience or try to paint it into a rosy glow. There are people called death midwives or death doulas who try to ease somebody, and it's possible. And I think that would be uplifting to watch somebody have a positive terminal death storyline. Because it is sad and tragic, but we've seen that story before.
However they did it, if it was an assisted dying, people wouldn't help but compare it to Hayley's, and that scene was so well powerful, done.
Yeah.
And it was partly due to the fact that those two characters had been together for a good 15 years, and they were one of Coronation Street's most popular characters. I don't think that with Paul and Billy they could come anywhere close to replicating it, so I don't know whether it's worth trying.
I hope that I've explained what I think, and I hope that no matter what happens, no matter what happens, I just want people to be able to take some comfort from it. Because I know Coronation Street is always moving on and changing and evolving, and there was nothing uplifting or inspirational about what happened with Hayley. She did take her power back at the end.
Yeah, when she went around in her wheelchair and told Tracy off.
I'm talking about the final scene where, and how much bitterness that Roy held against her. And it was all very raw and real and honest, and it felt true and it felt dramatic. But there's a chance for something different with this. And it would be nice to imagine a story where you watched it and you weren't afraid.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there are people who are watching it who are facing similar things, and it would be nice to give them something that doesn't feel just drenched in utter misery, which is very easy to fall into. And
there is a lot of misery in Corrie at the moment.
Tell anybody how to feel about anything, obviously, but
right. Let's move.
I'll shut up then.
But just before, I did appreciate how Billy hates having angels at funerals. The Robbie Williams song Angels.
Not the actual
Not
beings.
the actual angels. If they come down from on high, he probably quite likes that.
Yeah.
But I am also not a fan of Robbie Williams, and I'm absolutely...
Michael hates Robbie Williams.
I just... Robbie Williams, he really kind of irks me. He gets me so... I just can't stand Robbie Williams and his big, massive ego. And the fact that Angels is so beloved really grinds my gears so much. So the fact that Billy has acknowledged that, a pat on the back for him,
Angels
almost character of the week worthy.
Almost instantly a kind of cliche joke about having it at your funeral, in the same way that James Blunt's "You're Beautiful" became cliche almost the moment you heard it.
Yeah,
I don't know if America. I don't know if it's very famous outside of the UK. It's a one-hit wonder, wasn't he, in America? Robbie Williams with Angels.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
He had one hit in America. You'll be pleased to hear.
Thank you. Anyway, showing Privates Ryan next, Gem. We said this would be a short podcast. We're already to hit the 2-hour mark at this point. So Ryan's not having a good week. We've not seen too much of him recently.
Oh, well, how's his appendix?
No, he's having a bad week because everybody thinks he's really hot and sexy, and it's so much of a burden. Yeah,
I know how that feels.
People are wanting live videos of him on O-vidz now, and somebody saying, "Look, if I pay you a bit extra, can you do a live for me and take your kit off?" And he's hesitant at first, but as the week goes on, he loses those inhibitions a little bit. So Carla offers him a couple of shifts in packing at Underworld, and he's like, "Oh, I don't really." Yeah, go on then. And then he then gets another message from somebody wanting a live video, and he says, "No live vids. How about a hot picture then?" The guy says, "Nope. I've already unsubscribed for you." So as the week goes on, Ryan is losing subscribers left, right and centre because his material is too tame, apparently. So Tuesday's episode starts, and he's ejecting his arse away again with his steroids, and then he gets more notifications from... I didn't get this. Did you see it? He looks on his phone and gets a notification saying no notifications. That's like really rubbing it in, isn't it?
Yeah.
like you need to start getting your kit off more, mister. Nobody's interested. Nobody biting at the moment. Just wanted to let you know. Just wanted to rub it in.
You know you're really unpopular.
Just imagine that if it was on Twitter or something. Like, nobody has liked any of your posts in the last week. Just telling you. So Carla pops into his room and says, "Look, don't forget you're starting at the factory today." And he's like, "Oh, I have to work with Dirk? Oh man, I'll go in the afternoon."
How dare you besmirch the name of Dirk?
Yeah, and he says, "I'm expecting a call." So later on, it's actually Kirk who he's working with. Kirk not Dirk. And he's humping boxes with him. And Ryan... What?
You could sell that video.
Ryan gets an O-vidz message. I get it. Right. Ryan gets humping boxes, did you just say?
That's what you said.
I said boxes.
What?
Humping boxes.
Yeah.
Not humping boxers.
Oh.
That's different.
That's illegal.
Humping in his boxers.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
I'm joking.
Ryan gets an O-vidz message saying, "Look, can you do something special for me?" And then he's like, "Oh, go on then." He's realised that the alternative to getting his kit off of the internet is
no notifications.
No notifications, and also a life of drudgery working in the factory with Kirk.
Kirk doesn't seem to mind.
He heads off to the loo to do a little private video in there, and he comes back later having sent a couple of topless photos to this guy who's not happy with how tame it is.
I want to say, if I'm paying you, how much am I paying you?
£500.
If I'm paying you £500, I don't want a toilet video.
I know. I don't know, mate.
I want
Maybe
a
he likes
classy
that.
background. I want billowing curtains. I want fancy 1,000 count thousand thread. I don't even know how to say it because we don't have them. Fancy sheets.
Maybe, you know, you might like the grubby nature of it.
Oh, I want a dirty toilet pitch.
Yeah, having a bit, a bit of graffiti in the background that
I
says
suppose,
Sean
yeah.
was here, or
Yeah, I suppose men are different than ladies, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've heard stories.
So he comes back later, and Kirk notices he's got his top inside out, and that led to I thought it was quite a funny conversation between the two of them. So Kirk saying, "Do you need to?" I can't remember. Does he say you need to take your top off to have a poo?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I can't do it with that." And it's like this kind of semi-awkward conversation that Ryan's trying to get some sort of excuse about why his t-shirt's on backwards, and he has to convince Kirk that he has to take his top off to go to the loo. And Kirk's like, I get it, I'm the same with shoes. So a little bit TMI from Kirk.
It reminded me
there.
of Butters from South Park.
Why?
Doesn't he lift his t-shirt all the way up
Oh yeah, he does, doesn't he?
to do a wee wee?
So later on, he's getting bombarded with more messages from this person who's very insistent that he wants a live show later. Nothing else will do. And Ryan's like, £500? And the guy's like, yep, okay then, but you better make it worth it. So Ryan's like,
That's a lot of money.
So I was kind of bluffing then a little bit, but I suppose £500 would be quite nice. So he goes back to the flat. He's a little bit coy about it, saying he's not done a live before, and you can see that he's agonising about getting started with this. But then he's like, "Well, here goes nothing." Starts to strip. Back at the factory later, he turns up there having done this.
Doesn't he have like a Phantom of the Opera mask on his face?
Yes, he does. Well, it's this magic new ring light that Daisy gave him. Not only can it take your scars away completely, it can also put these fancy filters on you. So he's
Does
got
it make your willy look bigger?
Well, maybe it does. I don't know why he just doesn't wear a mask. Literally, why can't he be the masked Phantom too? It's been 20 years since we had old Sam Kingston parade. Oh, that's Python, that's it, wasn't it? Yeah. Thank you for correcting me.
It's all right. I know all of my
20 odd
names.
years since the masked Python has been parading about the Rovers, thrusting his crotch in
Very
Blanche
good
Hunt's
point,
face.
Michael.
He could just wear a mask.
These days don't understand how to do anything that's not digital.
I know.
Shocking.
Anyway, goes back to the factory, says, "Oh, sorry, Carlo, I had to pop to the shop. I can manage this job. Honestly, I'm fine." But then it turns...
And this time, because the first time we had a clue that he'd been up to nefarious deeds, but the fact that his t-shirt was inside out, this time he comes back to the factory and his pants are on his head. Not really.
He turns out that he's forgotten to pass a message on to Kirk about the delivery address changing or something, and he gets mad with himself and plods off back to the flat. Carla's like, "What's going on? Do you want this job or not?" And he's like, "Look, I only did it because you asked me to." She says, "I just thought you needed a gentle push. Come on, just talk to me. What's going on? You're hiding yourself away in your bedroom. You're shutting everyone else up. What is going on with you? Just talk to me." And he's like, "I can't be doing with this. I'm going off for a run." Where he encounters Daisy and they have a lovely chat together, but he gets a bit awkward and leaves. Wednesday's episode, this made me laugh. This is a good one. This is the episode where Peter finds him up to all sorts in the bedroom. I loved it. So Ryan asked Peter at the beginning of the episode to apologise to Carla, for what happened the other day. He's like, "So does this factory job, it's not right for me." "What is?" says Peter. You're locked in your bedroom all day. You're pumping iron. What's going on? You're a massive hermit. Ryan says, "I'm doing fine, actually. Look, I'm just getting loads of online cash for my fitness videos. I'm doing just fine."
And teaching housewives how to use dumbbells.
Exactly. So Carla and Peter go to the cafe where they have a good old worry about Ryan. Carla says, "I know there's something wrong with him, but what?" So this is the scene where we have Peter returning to the flat later in the day and hear some very strange noises coming out of Ryan's bedroom. So what's going on is Ryan's online with this guy doing some kind of online sexy thing. What Peter overhears, he misconstrues as him having a lady. No, he doesn't think there's a lady in there, does he? I thought at first he thought that there was a lady in there with him, but he goes
naughty phone sex.
He thinks he's having naughty phone sex with a lady, and Chris Gascoigne's reaction to this is brilliant. Like, he kind of like stifles a laugh that he's overhearing his nephew or whatever the relation's supposed to be getting up to all kinky stuff online.
You'll never hear anything you want to hear by listening through a door.
And he goes through to the pub and tells Carla what he's heard, and Carla's like, "Oh, you mean his own phone sex? Ew!" And they both kind of have a bit of a giggle giggle about it.
Yeah.
But they're kind of glad that he's doing okay, actually.
Yeah.
Daisy, on the other hand, is kind of hears this and she's concerned. She needs to stick her two penneth in. So she strops on around that flat and says, right, I don't believe your story. You're saying you're making a load of money on your online. Don't believe that. I've seen how many your followers you got. I know my stuff when I'm talking about earning money online. Don't believe you. What's all this I hear about phone sex?
She's just jealous.
I know she is. She's mega jealous. So later on, and Ryan has admitted what he's up to, and I don't think he's told her the full story. Has he told her he's doing this for men? Or does she still believe at this point it's only ladies that he's getting his kecks off for?
I don't know what the point of the men of it being men is.
I think it's just to show that how low he's saying, how degrading it is.
No. That's not what you mean to say, is it?
Well, no, I'm just saying for him personally.
He's not interested in men.
No.
So from that perspective, he didn't go into it expecting that to happen.
No, I think some people...
Be careful what you're saying.
I am. I know. I'm very sensitive, me. I'm saying that some people who do these videos online where they get their kit off and do whatever for the cameras, if they think they're being watched by someone who they might also find attractive, that's probably quite alluring to them.
Yes.
Ryan's not getting anything out of,
yes,
whatever he's up to in front of men. He's probably repulsed. He's probably, repulsing himself doing this. That's the thing. And I think if Daisy knew that he was doing that, she'd be even more narked at him. But she's saying to him, look, are you doing porn here? And he's like, this is what's been going on. I can't believe what I'm hearing, says Daisy. But before they can go that further into it, Carla goes in and they have to stop the conversation. Do you think that Daisy's being a bit hypocritical here with all the stuff that she used to get up to online as well? Or, selling her body online in a way?
I don't even know what to say about it.
It's a bit different, isn't it? She was just putting her fashion tips and things online. I think she, as a friend, has every right to be concerned with what he's doing.
There is so much difference between what Ryan is doing, which is people would classify it as sex work, and being an influencer. But social media is kind of blurring the lines a bit, because there are plenty of influencers who would call themselves fitness influencers or whatever, fashion, whatever, who are also on something like OnlyFans, yeah? Mm. But there are different things, and if you don't intend for one of them to be your job, and you end up doing that job, there is lots of room for you to become traumatised and upset and psychologically damaged. That's not to throw any aspersions onto people who do that, sex work. It's not to disparage that at all. It's not what I'm about. But Coronation Street's always been quite clear about its sort of opinion on sex work, and that is that it is damaging to the person who's carrying it out. Nobody on Coronation Street has ever done it and gone, great, no negative consequences here. Just good times, good money. I got out when I wanted to, and everything's hunky dory. No personal complications. Mm. So, and the fact that it's men or women, I don't think it makes much difference. My point to bring it up earlier was simply to say that perhaps Coronation Street only did it because it feels a bit more realistic that men feel more happier to pay for this, and also have more money to pay for it. Mm. Like, traditionally speaking, it feels like definitely something that men are more likely to do. And I don't feel like I'm putting anybody down by saying that.
I'm still waiting to find out that, it's an established character that's somebody who's been watching him all this time and not realising it's him.
It definitely doesn't feel wrong to me to say that sex work's not for everybody, and Ryan never intended for this to happen. No, he's gone down the rabbit hole a bit further than he was expecting to, for sure. I don't think he was expecting to be older, doing a bit of a kinky with his winky in front of another guy, but it doesn't matter who. Yeah, that's not the point.
The episode ends with Daisy telling him, "Look, promise me you'll stop if it gets any weirder than it already is."
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's really good advice. Like, you can decide what you're comfortable with, and if you're doing stuff you're not comfortable with, it doesn't really matter what that is. It could be something different for everybody.
Thing is, she doesn't realise just how weird it has got.
It's not weird. It's your own personal tolerance for what it is that you are.
Okay, she doesn't realise that he's doing things that he doesn't tolerate, and he's kind of being forced to do. No, he's really not comfortable doing what he's doing.
It's like, for some people, it would be having a photo of yourself in a bikini. You know, Daisy wouldn't mind doing that if she was being paid to put a bikini on. I would rather have my appendix out again. You see what I mean? But it doesn't mean doesn't mean that I think, oh, wearing a bikini makes you the devil's whore. No, it's what you're personally comfortable with, and it's clear that he's stepped beyond the boundary of what he really wanted to do, but he is being forced into it because he is desperate, and he's also on this kind of redemption. He's trying to prove to himself that he's still fanciable, worthy, whatever you want to call it, valuable. Yeah,
it's certainly building up his confidence in that respect, I suppose.
But I just would hope that somebody who's done this, you know, and can totally see that it's not criticising. I don't think Coronation Street's criticising it in general.
No,
I don't know, but I just want everyone to be happy.
I think it's a perfectly natural reaction. If you find that somebody's doing it, it's a perfectly natural reaction to go, what the hell? What on earth would you do that for? Some people would say, oh, good for you, but I don't think that would necessarily be the expected reaction.
It's fine, but it's not. We sometimes, I think, you get, when you're very, very liberal, you kind of left leaning, and you surround yourself with people who are very tolerant and stuff. You can kind of kid yourself into thinking that things are more accepted than they really are.
Yeah.
And the stigma itself is damaging before you even get into whether or not it's personally overstepping your own boundaries. But it's certainly not something that they advertise down the job centre, is it? You know, it's not like, do you want to be a postman or do you want to be a stripper?
I don't. Where do you think this storyline's going to end up? I mean, do you think he's going to be caught literally doing something for another guy, and then that's when somebody's going to say,
he's
okay, Ryan's enough?
Somebody that is a character.
You reckon?
And I don't know if we've met that character yet, or if they're going to introduce somebody, or if somebody's leaving that's not significant enough. Tell you, I reckon loves a bit of it.
Billy?
No, that old Jess.
Jess, PC Jess, do you reckon?
She needs to blur some steam after a long shift.
Okay, let's go on to the lighter story of the week, which is all about funeral directors.
Every week, Coronation Street just throws so many issues that I never thought I'd be talking about at me.
Well, there's not much of an issue with this one.
No, I know, but you're just trying to navigate everything and being open-minded and understanding that everybody has and there are so many different opinions about everything.
I think for a change you should just not be open-minded about something and say, no, I think that sex work is absolutely wrong and abhorrent, and I think that Ryan is degrading himself.
Nobody's ever heard that before.
Right, come on. Let's do Todd and George and Lurch at the funeral there.
Oh, okay. All right, then. I'm going to come out. I'm going to say what I really think for once.
Go on, then.
I don't think there should be funerals. I think we should be fired into the sun with a big cannon. I think everybody should be collected every week. All the corpses get mashed into a ball, and then they fire us into the sun, and until the sun is full of dead bodies, and then it explodes. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with me. That's just how I feel about it.
Than's very much.
And George, I'm glad I finally got that off my chest.
Gemma, George.
Hang on, I've got to sit up.
Oh, it's gone.
It really hurts.
How's your pain levels from 1 to 10 at the moment?
It's about 11.
No, it's not. What are you really? Are you okay? Are you?
I'm suffering, but I'll be all right.
Suffering for your art. I feel like
who's the most person who's ever suffered from that art apart from me?
Vincent van Gogh cut his ear off.
I feel like Vincent van Gogh
lost an organ.
Yeah, you can cut his off.
He's got another one.
I had to get out for mine.
You ain't got no appendices left now.
I had a whole team.
Right, go on.
Okay. So George on Monday has 3 applications for Todd's old job, but he's pretending he had more and he's just whittled it down because everyone wants to work for Shuttleworth.
Sorry, I've got a cough. I'm sick.
Mary points out to Todd that he's looking a bit stressed and tired, and he's like, no, I'm fine. But we know that he's actually being worked hard, and he's doing stuff he doesn't agree with.
Yeah,
just like Ryan.
Oh yeah, exactly. As the week goes on, we find out that Troy's a bit of a nasty boss, don't we?
Who'd have guessed it?
Who'd have thought?
Troy's like, listen, Todd, we've got you booked in for 2 funerals and a lap dance. It's a joke because I said Ryan. He's like, Ryan.
Oh.
God.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I cut off my ear like Van Gogh.
I say lots of jokes that you don't laugh at, and I do wonder if people understand at home if I'm joking, because I must sound insane sometimes.
God, carry on.
So, Todd's being asked by Troy to pick up on a client of his because he promised him something turns out they can't do. And now Troy doesn't want to say they can't do it, so he's getting Todd to do his dirty work. And it's something to do with... He can't even remember what it is he said they would do now, but he wants Todd to get them out of it. So in the evening, later on, Troy's trying to get hold of Todd, and he eventually answers his phone, and Todd tells him, no, I didn't do what you said. I told him we'd do our best to meet his dead wife's wishes because that's our job. And Troy is not impressed in this at all because his consideration of what their job is to milk as much money as possible out of the bereaved and deliver as little as possible in return.
It does show a nice bit of character growth for Todd, I suppose, doesn't it? Because that's exactly what Todd was like when he first started working for George.
Yes. No, things don't have to be sort of, like unpredictable and completely unique to be an interesting story. I mean, everyone could see this coming a mile away.
They could. I think my main problem with this story is that Todd's realisation that Rest Easy isn't right for him has come a bit too soon.
Like it was obvious to everybody.
It was obvious right from the
Todd.
start, and he's barely there 5 minutes before he's saying, I want to go back to Shuttleworth. I think they probably could have milked a little bit more out of this, maybe. But
yes. So this is when we see Todd telling Paul to go to Shuttleworth for the funeral.
For Shelley's funeral.
And he speaks to George about it, and George is making all these snarky digs and about him billing Paul for his consultation time, and Todd just can't listen to it and he leaves. I think George is being a bit
George this week, just recently, is getting right on my nerves.
George hasn't given any consideration to the fact that one of Todd's closest, I wouldn't say they were friends exactly. I guess they are. There's something beyond friends, aren't they? They're almost family with each other now.
Oh yeah.
And this guy is dying and talking to Todd about his funeral, and George is like going,
I'm just finding George to being really, really childish at the moment.
They're going to Bethize him if they're not careful.
He's not like that. He's being just horribly snarky. We're to believe that he lives with Todd, and every time he just sits around on that mini dining room table they got in Eileen's lounge. The second that Todd walks into the room, comes downstairs, he's like bombarded with the next dollop of snark from George, who's just being so petty and kind of put out that Todd chose Rest Easy instead of him because he didn't want to up his pay. I just think he's being a massive baby. How old's this guy? 50 odd?
Yeah.
And he's acting like a real baby, like throwing all his toys out the pram because because this guy didn't want to work for him anymore. He's a grown man that's going out with his mum. We're not seeing enough of Eileen on this because I'd like to see her, I don't know. She needs to tell George, stop being such a horrible arse to my son.
On the very sort of surface level of things, I'm afraid that George is not in the right here.
He's not.
Because he tried to hide this conversation from...
Oh yeah, the little card.
From Todd in the first place, because it feels like he was not paying Todd what he was worth.
Now, I know that he necessarily wouldn't have the money to pay him, although I think he probably would, because he does have a giant house. But yeah, he is totally in the wrong here, but he's not being made out. I don't know whether we're supposed to feel that he's in the wrong. Are we supposed to be cheering on George and saying, yeah, he did abandon you?
Other.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Todd's abandoning his friendship and his principles in pursuit of the pound.
But at least
he's been treated so badly by George, I would have left on principle of the fact that he hid something from me and he tried to lowball me.
At least Todd isn't taking every single opportunity to get the boot in with George, is he? He's just trying to get on with his job and live under the same roof as this guy. But George, he's really winding me up.
George owns the company. He's not paying out to anybody else. All the profits go in his pocket. He obviously gets wages. He hasn't said that they're in trouble. They're certainly not earning their full potential. But there's been no indication that they're on their last legs or anything.
No.
So the fact that George is penny pinching, in my opinion, he's basically robbing Todd of his wages to give to grieving relatives. You can't, in this situation, you can't be kind to both of them, can you?
No. I just
and if he's not charging enough to pay Todd what he's worth, he can't get mad if Todd leaves and goes somewhere else.
It's a real shame because it's a really ugly character trait, and up until this point, I think
he'll realise though.
Up until this point, George is supposed to be a kind, jovial. I know he's not exactly the same as Archie, but can you imagine Archie Shuttleworth doing this and treating his underling in the same way as George is treating Todd?
George is a much more developed character.
George would be turning in his grave if he could see. Sorry, Archie would be turning in his grave if he could see what George was up to now. He's really, really not impressed.
I know, but is this part of the plot though? Is he going to learn his lesson?
It is, but that's the thing. It's too plot driven. I just don't think it's in his character to act like this. He's just been a baby.
I know, yeah. What I think he should just give get Todd back and give him shares in the company, or make him a co-owner or something, and say, I believe in you, and I think we can do this together. But if you're seriously asking me to invest in you in more of as an equal, then you have to suffer the highs and lows alongside me, because they are more of an equal partnership than I think employee and employer.
Well, the fact that they're their family, pretty much.
Yeah. So I get George's point is that I can't just give you loads of money, because if the business goes bad, I'm not going to stop giving you money. I have to pay you. But if they both co-own the business, then they both understand this month we're not getting paid as much because we decided to forego our fee for this. And it gives him more autonomy. Anyway, that's
I would hope.
Too involved.
Well, no, it's fine. I would hope that the story would end up going that way, because clearly Todd's going to go back to Shuttleworth's at the end. And to have him being made a co-owner of it would be quite nice. And it also that makes me think, will they rename it to Shuttleworth and Grimshaw's, or does it still, because it's been a family business all this time. I think it would be quite sweet for Todd, who's never known his actual dad, to finally have a father figure in George that it could feel like it's George doesn't have any children of his own to pass the business on. Shuttleworth has been going like over 100 years, we're led to believe. So it makes sense to me if Todd gets to take on this family business as part of the family. I think that'd be quite nice. It's just a shame we've had to have all this sniping to get to it.
Well, it's part of the story, Michael. You can't just go, oh yeah, do you want to be business partners? Cool. Well, what are we going to do for the next 6 weeks for this bloody storyline, and talk about Mary's mum a bit more?
Okay, you're right. Right.
I'll tell you what has a nice ring to it.
What?
Shuttleworth and Grimshaw.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
But I suppose putting Grim in the name of a funeral business is a bit on the nose, isn't it?
No, it's a good Coronation Street business name.
Okay.
Do you not think?
Maybe. I don't think it needs it. I think I still prefer the idea of it being Shuttleworth and Todd being made to feel part of the family.
But he's not a Shuttleworth.
No, he's not, but he's
a Grimshaw.
He is, but I think it would be lovely for him to have a father figure for the first time in his life.
And a father figure who's like, you're not really my son, but I accept you, Grimshaw. When I think of Grimshaw in relation to the funeral director, I imagine a rickshaw being pulled by the Grim Reaper. Do you see how it's perfect for funeral directors?
They could have a rebrand when George finally shuffles off this mortal coil himself.
Do you want the Grimshaw package? No one does. I don't know why.
Right, come on. What happened?
We're up to.
We're up to the beginning of Tuesdays.
Okay. Right, so Tuesday he's been more childish again as George, and he's gloating to Todd that Paul's choosing Shuttleworth's over Rest Easy.
Yeah, because he doesn't realise that Todd was the one that's pushed Paul towards
again, another trope of somebody being selfless for literally no reason. Why doesn't Todd just rub his nose in it and say, I told him to?
Because
he needs to say...
He's an honourable chap, is our Todd.
Yeah, but why? He's making it worse because he's giving George ammunition. So Todd gets married to one side and says, I'm not having a great time at
Rest Easy.
Rest Easy. I want... And Mary says, well, you asked for your old job back. So Todd catches George as he's coming out of the...
Undertakers.
I was going to say asylum seekers. What is in this drugs?
This is another. I just wish that they'd show inside the funeral. The fact that they're having a story about the funeral directors and they're not showing what the inside of it is like.
Who was it that pointed out they're doing the same with Roy's flat?
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I know. Yeah.
So he's buttering George up.
He's ready to ask him for his job back, isn't he?
And out comes this incredibly tall replacement who's being called Lurch by lots of people.
Well, they call him Lurch on the episode, don't they?
Yeah.
Not, I think on the Wednesday episode, that's when he gets his nickname. He's actually called Lee. Yeah, very tall Lee.
I love this guy. Who's this actor? He's brilliant. He's got such damp eyes.
He's a man of very few words, isn't he?
Yes.
He does open up a little bit more on Wednesdays, but Tuesday's episode, the joke is just that he's much like the Yarp guy from Hot Fuzz, isn't he?
Do you know who he reminds me of?
Massive lunk.
He reminds me of a young, in Harry Potter.
Yes.
Neville Longbottom.
A young
wet blanket.
He is very wet. Yeah.
He's a wet blanket, but I know he's got something inside him that's important.
noble. I'm on Todd's side here. Like I will often get intimidated by very tall people, and Todd arrives and kind of has to crane his neck to see this bloke lumbering out from the door.
Yeah, he's very tall. Because Todd is a normal size person.
He also reminded me. Do you remember? I'm going back 25 odd years or so, maybe.
Is this a podcast interesting?
Maybe, especially the bits about your appendix. It reminds me a bit of Boris in the Butchers. Do you remember Ashley's assistant Boris? He was a bit dumb as well.
Yeah.
Getting Boris vibes from Lee. Anybody else? Anyway, go on, carry on.
So George is like, this is my new replacement, and Todd's making fun of him. And then he won't admit that he came to get his job back. And George wants him to ask him. It's like two kids wanting to take each other to the prom.
Yeah, George, you're right. George is kind of hoping that Todd is going to ask for his job back, but
he's too proud.
Yes.
So George and Lee go to the pub, and he can't get anything out of this kid. He's just sitting there
staring at him. It's so funny.
Todd goes to see Paul moaning about Lee, and he's bitter about being replaced by him. And Todd says, "I wish I could go back to work there." And Paul says, "Why don't you ask him?" This storyline is just lifted from like a teen romance series where somebody wants to go to the school dance. On Wednesday, George tells Todd that he's going to leave Lee in charge. He's not, and Todd's like, "Oh, I don't know if it's."
Why would he even do that? This guy who's been working for him for one day, he's now in charge of the funeral directors.
It's not like it's like a pet shop. Well, I wouldn't even put somebody in charge of a pet shop. What would be a bakery? What's the worst that can happen? Everything's been baked. You got to sell it. So all you have to do is someone comes in, they give you money, and you leave. A funeral directors. Lots of things can go wrong. There are a lot of volatile situations that can occur very suddenly at a funeral director's, like a zombie apocalypse, for example, or grieving relatives.
I think that Lee is part of the zombie apocalypse.
I think he's the vanguard.
Looks like he's just... I think he's buried next to Leo. It looks like he's just crawling out of the ground. He's just
got some foundation
a bit better colouring on, yeah.
He's been down boots. So... Todd sees Lee outside Shuttleworths and he's threatened because he thinks he's locked his keys inside the hearse. And Todd gets him to go inside the back to find them. And he looks like he's really tempted to lock him in the hearse.
I know. He was looking at it. He had a very mischievous look in his eye.
Yeah, and George comes and he's like, "Why is my assistant crawling around in the back of the hearse? This is your fault. Stop asking about and causing trouble."
I hope that I'm not expecting Lee to be a long-term character here. I'd like him to, from what I've seen so far, but I'm not expecting it. But I hope that he's just not the butt of their jokes.
I do hope there's an overlap.
I feel sorry for him.
I hope there's an overlap where they all three work there together.
Yeah, that could be fun. I just don't want Todd and George to be bonding together over mutual mockery of this poor tall chap.
So George gets a call. He comes home late. He's had to spend the afternoon sorting out a mess that Lee got into because when they were talking to a client, he just started crying, which I can totally sympathise with. Yeah, I don't think Lee's going to last very long.
No,
I think I would start crying. If someone cries, I start crying.
I think there was a slight change in Lee between the two episodes, and I don't know whether it was different writers or whatever, but Tuesday's episode very much was a case of this guy is pretty much mute. He's got nothing going on inside his head. He's not going to get a podcast out of him. But Wednesday's episode, throughout the whole key incident, and then presumably what was going on with this client at the funeral office, he clearly was a bit more
his feelings,
a bit more talkative. But I don't know. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. And then we also had the
final one,
the Courtney story. Yeah, not much happened with Courtney. It's basically just her being horrible in the cafe by getting Nina to make another iced matcha because the first one wasn't any good, and then she goes and stays with them at number 7 and has dinner, and Nina's cooked stew and dumplings. Courtney doesn't like them, and then
Courtney
Darren
doesn't know what the dumpling is.
No,
and I cannot believe that there's a Scouser alive who doesn't recognise a dumpling.
I know.
From 10 foot.
And anyway, Darren comes round marching into number 7 and says, "Here's your divorce papers."
Well, he's making fun of her. He's making fun of her, and he's kind of like
he's trying
pointing out that this woman is pampered, and she's never lifted a finger in her life, and now she's leeching off these lot, and that she's not at all living in the circumstances she's accustomed to. And I think if we're going to see Courtney's not a very long-lived character, this is where it's going to all happen. She's going to suddenly become outed as a princess. Because before it felt like we were kind of supposed to be thinking, oh, Courtney's just so misunderstood. She looks, because of the way she looks, people judge her and they think that she's frivolous and silly and she doesn't care about important things and she's not intelligent. Yeah. Then we had this lecture about how clever she is and she's got an MBA. And I guess we're supposed to have kind of pieced together, she's been hard done by her husband, and she recognises a good person in Ardy, so she must be a good person herself. I just would kind of be thrilled if it turned out she was just a shallow, useless cow.
I hope so.
Because honestly, sometimes people are. I'm kind of fed up with everyone being a diamond in the rough. All these people just misunderstood tarts with a heart. Some of them are just a tart. It's just a tart. Yeah. And with the best will in the world, it would kind of be quite funny if that's how Courtney ended up.
I've got no interest in a long-term relationship between Ardy and Courtney.
I can't understand anybody in this country who doesn't know what dumpling is. I was so offended.
Yeah, I'm all for Ardy and Amy getting together once this whole charade has been over. But I don't think it's happening yet. But anyway, I've got nothing to add about the story, as there are only a few scenes in it this week. So I think that brings us to the end of this fairly lengthy street talk, despite the fact that we said it'd be a short one this week. How are you feeling about this week, score-wise, Gemma?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about my appendix.
No, you were getting to the score and the character of the week, and then you can finally get what people have actually come to this podcast
I don't think
for,
I've got the energy,
hearing
honestly.
about your appendix. You promised it now. You've got to do it. You've got to tell us the full and frank story about your appendix drama. So, what's your score?
Interesting question.
I thought it would be. I pretty much enjoyed it this week. I wasn't a huge fan of the George story just because I was fed up with George himself, but Lee did help save it. I thought that the Stephen stuff was exciting.
I don't like it coming to an end.
I find it exciting that it was potentially coming to an end, as much as I'm not looking forward to it ending. At least it means the run up to the ending should be quite fun. There was something lacking in terms of kind of shock and reaction and heavy drama when Leo's body was uncovered. I think that Sally Ann Matthews did an awful lot of the heavy lifting in that, and maybe it should have felt a little bit more impactful than it really did. But on the whole, I thought it was a fairly good week. I'm gonna go. I
tell you, there does seem to be a like you kind of mentioned this before, but there seems to be, as you said, a troubling lack of curiosity about why Leo's dead.
So far.
I know.
They're thinking it's Teddy that maybe killed him.
Are they?
Yeah, some people are.
I know, but I feel like that would be all I cared about. If I lived on Coronation Street, that would be all I would be talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. It's not a big thing, but
be
that's
like,
because
oh look, he's been found dead.
Dead bodies and serial killers are 10 a penny in Coronation Street at the moment. That's
Who
the problem.
knows if it was his dad? We won't dwell on it though, because we're bigger than that. We got to watch the Weatherfield County match.
I'm giving this week's Coronation Street 3.5. You know what shaped lollipops out of 5.
Not allowed.
And it's a half a lollipop because someone's had a tasty nibble. What are you giving it?
That was £500. No, that's probably more than that.
What are you giving it?
I'm going to give it 3.5 dead basic rustic stews.
With dumplings?
I don't know what they are. There are lumps in there and I'm not sure what they are.
What exactly they are. Character of the week. it's not obvious to me what the character's going to be.
Ed Gamble.
I enjoyed
Guest
Ryan
star.
this week. I thought that Paul was as good as always. Stephen, obviously an awful lot of fun. I don't really know.
I really don't know either. I'm trying to scramble to think.
There wasn't an obvious standout to me.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Gemma's flagging after a couple of hours of
Oh,
recording.
that's what my alarm was for. We cut the alarm out. Well, my pills are due, that's why.
Oh yeah, you are due your painkillers, aren't you?
I'm due my illegal drugs.
I'm going to give this week's character of the week to Ryan. I'm gonna give it to Ryan. I think he's doing his best. He's doing stuff he doesn't want to do, but he's got to out Carla, pay off this money, and I just enjoyed that story. Not just for no particular reason, but I'm gonna give it Ryan because I can't think of anyone else. What about you? Say a name.
Yes.
Say a name.
Paula.
No, say a name of a character that's in the programme.
Ow. Ow.
Don't.
Ow. Stephen,
character of the week for Gemma. There we go. Right.
Jenny.
Thank you, everybody,
And
for
Jenny.
listening to this podcast where we talk about what happened in Coronation Street this week.